Good morning, our dear participants joining us across the nation and outside the country. We are glad to have each and every one of us participating in the 2022 edition of the National Food Fest, the Agri-Food Workshop on building resilient food systems in achieving sustainable living on behalf of the leadership of SDSN Nigeria. We are glad to welcome you on board on this discourse, and we believe it's going to, and we hope it's going to be a productive one. Not taking so much of our time this morning, I'm Ola-Olowoyo by name. I'll be moderating this event with my co-moderator, Adeniji. And starting today's event is a welcome address from our own father and professor in person of Professor Labode Pupuola. Good morning, sir. We are glad to have you and have you hosting us and as well gracing this event despite your very tight schedule, sir.
Very good morning, Emmanuel, and ladies and gentlemen on this call. I'm really very sorry that I'm not physically present or at the back end. I'm on a journey, and so the network is just intermittent. Mine is just to welcome us to this very important event. We had planned it for a while, and I'm glad that it is happening today. The focus of our discussion is food systems, food festival. And this is a discussion that will have to continue for a long time to come. If we look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, there is probably none that will not have something to do with food. If you're talking about hunger, it's about food. If you're talking about poverty, it's about food. If you're talking about education, you cannot have an hungry person going to school. If you're talking about peace, there cannot be peace without food. So food is very important. And we have to do something about the food system. Is it the supply chain? From production to processing and to marketing. These are issues that we'll have to look at. We also have the issue of waste. A lot of waste is occurring at the farm level and even in the transportation of our food. All of these have negative effects on our well-being and also on sustainable development. So I'm really delighted that we're having this meeting this morning. Over time, particularly next year, we're still going to have some major activities in the area of food systems. For this workshop, we have assembled people who really have very good ideas about the subject matter. They are from within and outside the country, and I want to believe that they'll be able to satisfy all of us with their presentation. So on that note, I'm happy to welcome you once more to this year's Food Fest. Enjoy your time. Thank you very much and good morning.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that wonderful remark and opening from you. So we really appreciate it. And thank you for your support, and really appreciate each and every part of it, sir. And just like you mentioned, we have a lot of facilitators that will be joining this session today and telling us more about how to achieve a sustainable, resilient food system for all. And I will not do, but to also acknowledge the presence of some of our leaders, the leaders of SES in Nigeria. And during the course of the program, I'm also going to be doing that briefly. And to start today's session is the opening keynote, which is going to be led by the person of Professor Ngozi Odiaka. She'll be leading us on strategies, actions, opportunities for reaching a world without hunger. Our dear participants, we would appreciate you just do a brief introduction. We would like to meet you. We'd like to know where you are joining from. You can use the comment section to drop your comments. And at each point, whereby we are done with the session, there will also be rooms for comments and questions directly from each and every participant. And right away, we'll be starting with the first session, which is on strategies, actions, and opportunity for reaching a world without hunger. Good morning, Professor Ngozi. Good morning. We are glad to have you on this call, man. Hello, ma.
Hello. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful opportunity to share ideas on issues surrounding food in our nation and worldwide. I want to stand on the existing protocol, so not breaking it. I appreciate the opportunity given to me to hear my opinion, my views on strategies, actions, and for a world without hunger. I will speak from this end, and there are four basic things I may want to share with us, and that is to define what hunger really is, and then to really know whether hunger is really a problem to us as Africans or the world at large, and then to look at the causes of hunger in our nation, in Africa, and also in the world, and then to see if it's possible for us to get solutions to this world hunger, probably by looking at the strategies, the actions, and then opportunities that we have in reaching a world without hunger. Now, if we need to define hunger, I had to look at what FAO talks about hunger. And it says it's an uncomfortable or painful physical sensation that is caused by insufficient consumption of dietary energy. And I also believe very strongly that hunger is actually a compelling need or desire for food. We can also define it as a shortage of food or food availability. If food is not available, there will be hunger. So hunger is mostly expressed in our region in Africa and other third world countries as a big issue. So not consuming sufficient amount of calories on a regular basis to lead a normal, active, and healthy life brings about the issue of hunger. And FAO has hello?
We can hear you.
Can hear you, man.
Okay, thank you.
We can hear you.
Yes, I was actually being asked to on my video, so I hope that's fine now. You see, so I was saying that for FAO, they have what they use to indicate hunger, or rather the prevalence of undernourishment. And this has helped to be able to know whether we are actually hungry or not. Now, there are facts that I really want to bring about hunger. The global hunger rose from 828 million in 2021. That's from UN's report, a recent one. This means that over 828 million people go to bed hungry every night. So food insecurity has scored or has increased from about 135 million to about 345 million since 2019. Remember, we had the issue of COVID. So that increased this issue. So presently, a total of 15 million people in about 45 countries are in this problem of famine, of hunger. And honestly, the numbers are just increasing. And the proportion of people affected by hunger has risen from 8% in 2019 to about 9.3% in 2020, and now in 2021, 9.8% of the world population. That shows that there's a kind of gradual increase in the number of people that are getting hungry in the world on a daily basis. And this calls for a serious concern. And I'm sure we all want to believe that there is a big concern in our hands with the issue of hunger, with the issue of food in our nation, in our region, and in the world at large. So in essence, from the projections that have been made, about 670 million people will still be facing hunger in 2030. And from what FAO reported, they said even if a global economic recovery is taken into consideration, 88% of the world population will still be in hunger. So we see that hunger is actually a problem. It is a trap. And I believe very seriously that it's an enemy that we have to deal with and to keep away from us completely. But there are causes. What are those things that cause this hunger that we want to do away with, or that has been a trap to us, or that has been an enemy to us? For me, and honestly, the first thing is poverty. And I believe that poverty is the greatest cause of hunger around the world. We may begin to ask ourselves, how is it? How does that one come up? Of course, we know very, very well that poverty has been a big problem to every country in the world. Smallholder farmers, who are the producers in developing countries, are the largest group of people in the world that have gotten into extreme poverty. So if they are not able, how much more? One is that they don't have the land, so growing their crops becomes a problem to them. Two, they earn so little that what comes in is not enough for them to even buy any other thing. They also have a problem that even though they produce, selling them is a problem. So getting something back is another problem. At the end of the day, they lose. middlemen probably becomes the owners of the big show. Another problem or cause of this hunger, apart from the issue of poverty, is climate change. Climate change is the greatest environmental challenge that we have presently. And you will agree with me with what is happening even in Nigeria and in some parts of Nigeria where we have a lot of flood everywhere. In fact, in the Middle Belt in Benue, I have colleagues who planted rice. Some had over 20 hectares of rice, some with 25 hectares of land cultivated with rice, all doing well initially, have been covered completely with water. We're only waiting for the water to recede. But who knows what's going to happen? But we can somehow say that we may not get and we will not get what that farmer planted initially. And that is if he doesn't lose everything completely. So when we are talking about environmental challenges, I think climate change is one of the biggest problems that we have. We also have in other areas issues of earthquakes, issues of drought. These are natural things or nature that has come upon us. Another problem we have is of the cost of hunger in the world of today is social insecurity. In some of our countries, we have seen and heard a lot of things happening, wars and rumors of war. And of course, when there is war, there's a lot of devastation, disaster, that you eventually don't have anything coming to you. You can't even produce. Where there's insecurity, you can't produce. There's some areas, at least in Nigeria, where we know that farmers can't even go to their village to do anything. A lot of IDP camps in cities, they have left their areas. So what can we do? It's a big problem. Another issue is unstable markets. There's also issues of middlemen coming into this issue of market. And one of the things I also have seen in my little years of production is that most of our crops, indigenous crops, we have left them and many have gone extinct. What are you doing or what am I doing? These are things that would have helped us, but we've gone ahead to leave them and go for other things that may not necessarily do what our own local indigenous crops will do for us. Another thing that came to mind is nutritional quality. When people are hungry, we talk of malnutrition. And the truth is that they're not getting enough of the nutrients, probably the protein, the vitamins, because they are probably eating just one kind of thing on a daily basis, which of course will not help them to grow well, will bring about loss in weight and severe body loss or severe troubles in their health. These causes are becoming serious issues. And I think it's high time we began to get ourselves sorted in this. So we just want to look at the other strategies that came to mind. For me, the first strategy when we are talking about the solutions to this world hunger and the strategy to use, the first thing that came to mind is a determined and purposeful leadership that can end hunger. I believe that where there is a will, there's always a way out. There should be continuity in leadership. When the leaders decide, they will achieve. And I normally ask myself, what happens, to programs that come up, seemingly doing well, and then suddenly everything fades away. And I just remembered the issue of the transformation agenda that Nigerians started, which probably would have been okay if followed. But somehow, I don't know, I stand to be corrected. I'm not really hearing so much about transformation agenda embedded in so many other things anyway. But probably, if we had followed it the way it was, we may have gotten somewhere. And I believe that every African country, Nigeria inclusive, is endowed with the capacity to end hunger, either by production or selling mineral resources to buy the food. So in essence, for me, it's imperative to place priority on agriculture in order to curb the hunger that we're talking about in the world. And everyone should engage in agriculture to contribute to efforts being made by government. In Nigeria, for example, we've had CBN, a branch of CBN, I think that's NICEL, that has been helping, farmers in production all through the value chain, actually. And I think that's a big thing. But are we really helping the government who has given us this opportunity by utilizing what we have and being sincere to what we are doing? It's high time we began to ask ourselves a lot of questions and make up our minds to do the needful. Another strategy that I think we can also adapt is to make sure that production or cultivation of crops should be all year round. We shouldn't have a situation where, because rainy season is gone, everybody stops producing. No. We have opportunities to use irrigation facilities in different places because almost everywhere there's water somewhere. And we can use irrigation facilities to do that. We can also provide adequate input to farmers. Leaders have been trying, but we need to make more efforts to help these farmers. This year alone, I know that fertilizer, NPK fertilizer, went so high to about 17,000 naira for a bag of fertilizer. And as scientists, you agree that if you don't have good inputs as a farmer, you won't be able to get the best out of your produce. And fertilizer is key. Good quality seed is key. Good management of your produce is key. So if the farmers don't have the wherewithal to do that, how can they produce enough for themselves to consume and also for them to sell and make their money? So governments or leaders should be able to increase inputs for farmers. And if we make the inputs, they should be original. Presently, we're having serious issues with fertilizers, different kinds of fertilizers. Original fertilizers are scarce to get. I bought one, and it was as if it was sand that was poured in the bag when we opened them. It's a big issue. Who can help regulate what we use in our nation, particularly when it has to get to the farmers? So if original fertilizers are made available to farmers and made available at affordable price, I mean it, affordable price, and increase availability of the credit they give them, I'm sure that they will produce more. We should be able also to deploy technology to these farmers. So many technology now they are available. I mean, when we are talking about climate smart agriculture, they are available. So we need to train the trainers to make sure that these farmers get the information and do the best and produce for themselves. And after production, export opportunities should be made available for the local market. Export not necessarily outside the country, but export to neighboring cities for these farmers. I also believe that extension workers will be needed at this stage to make sure that good information gets to these farmers at the right time. So there's need, if we are able to make that available, to combat the wastage that happens if farmers are left alone with their crops, particularly the perishables, the vegetables, the fruits and the vegetables. So we need to combat the wastage at this point. And this is really due to the availability of processing plants for them at the local level. So it's either we make that available to them at the local level for them to be able to produce, no matter how small, but at least the wastage will be reduced. We should be able to develop local value chains for these farmers. And then the issue of infrastructure. For infrastructure, we should be able to ensure that the basics gets to the farmers. Light, water, good roads, good network, at least for these farmers who are the major producers of the food that we all eat. Of course, when we have good roads, then it's easier for us to get to the market. So another strategy or point that we have to look at and make sure that the leaders, our government, have something to say is the issue of the market. Government, I believe, should be able to provide market avenues for all the products that we have. Middlemen have come to take charge, and they are the ones making the money. You can imagine a situation when you come to a market, probably a market of plantains and bananas. Now, for those of us in the middle belt, they bring the plantains and bananas from the south, and then the farmer brings his produce to the farm, and someone immediately takes over. And the farmer just is there watching to see what is happening. And the middleman sells. He only asks the man, the farmer, how much do you want to sell? 10 naira, fine. The farmer takes it over and sells probably for 20 naira, making over 100% gain. And if you go through production, you will know what it is to be a farmer. It hurts. It's painful to know that the producers who are to make their money don't make the money, and middlemen who sit in their offices at the end of the day, once they harvest, they come to the gate or they get to the market, takes everything from the farmer, and then deals with the goods. At the end of the day, what gets to your table is about 300 times what the farmer actually got. So there's need for government to help in this matter. It's been a recurring thing. And I think extension workers should also come in at that stage to make sure that something is done to it. Another strategy, I believe, is preventing and combating social insecurity. I mean, I don't need to overemphasize that. It's been the in thing, and I believe that God will help us out with it. Lastly, I think by creating a system that can make people access food without having to spend much would be great. A lot can be responsible for food scarcity, and it could be a technical challenge, logistics, or irregular price, but a system that will make available not just competent field workers, but also a reliable means of distribution of food from the field or factory will be great. And it should be designed in a way that everyone can afford. Now, what are the opportunities for reaching a world without hunger? Opportunities for reaching a world without hunger abound as the factors militating against food security are ever increasing and has gradually become a global problem. So the silver line into the hunger problem that we are faced with is the availability of land and population advantage, which can be channeled into farming. We have the land. We have good arable land. Even where we don't have the land, we have technologies that can make what you want. The smart agriculture is all over, that no one should really complain of not being able to produce. On YouTube yesterday, I saw a colleague who planted yam in bags, harvested them, said within 4 months he was able to harvest, and the yams were really big. So it's not like, we can't. We can, but it's the will to do it that is important. We have what we call vertical agriculture. Even when you think there's absolutely no land, nothing that you can use, the very small land or plots or wherever you are staying can also be used for it. We're only believing that the desire to do it, will be in us, and the will to do it will be in us, both at the government level, with the producers, and even our youths who are there to get into production. So funds are available. Like I said initially, I know that NICEL has been given funds and people are making ways for others to be able to produce. So these opportunities abound. It's how to get to it that is the issue. And who gets to these funds? Who are those who are really enjoying these funds? And I think that's where we also have to look into to be sure that the producers, the real producers, are the ones getting these resources and making them available to them on a platform that everyone can be communicated to easily. And this vision will be brought by the producers. Again, setting up reward systems, for me, I think is a good one. It's an opportunity where you can help. I think in Nigeria, we do that a lot too. In some areas where they have food day, they get things sorted, people bring what they have, they see what they have produced, reward them. I think that will help them. So setting up reward systems, I said, is the most productive. So the most productive participants can also help them. And then employment. Once we have this done, it will make employment available for many of our youths who are looking for jobs. People will be employed to make things better. Women are always available. We have opportunities with women. Women are assets, and we have very active members in different communities, and they are bound. We can also make use of them to get things sorted in food production. Agricultural education empowerment is also available. There are a lot of trainers COTs, training of trainers that has been going on, and we have many of them who are available and ready to go into teaching these producers or all through the value chain, people who want to either process or produce or do anything to the crop that they want to do. So we need to advertise and showcase what we have, whether in the tertiary institutions, in the secondary, or in the primary. Create that awareness in them. They are available and ready to take these instructions from us. If and only if we bring this information to them, they will definitely accept it. Another opportunity we have is that land is available. We have the human resources, and we have indigenous private companies all around us who do one or two things in farming. And I know that in some of our states, we have existing supply chain systems that government has given to us for some time. So what are the actions that we want to take on this issue? One is implementation of policies to encourage actors all through the value chain. But who brings about these policies? The government, yes, is the one that brings out this policy, but you have a part to play. I have a part to play. I have information to give, you have information to give. All the stakeholders should be able to come together, make these policies, and government stands by it because they are the ones who are going to get it done. This definitely will enhance production as producers will be legitimately exempted from excessive taxing also if policies that surround production, surrounds everything agriculture or the issues of value chain, they are part of it, it will help us a lot. Again, I think one of the actions that we also need to take is regulations should be made that will ensure that people become engaged in agriculture so as to add to what government is doing for us. So with an increase in the uncertain weather conditions as a result of the climate change, I think we'll be required to make arrangements for artificial sources of water, which are major factors of food production, in order to favorably cultivate our own crops. About the insecurity.
Hello,
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma. Sorry for the interruption. I think the person has been muted.
So I was talking about the actions. Another action that we have to look into is the issue of insecurity. Is a major determinant to food security or hunger. Like I said initially, in some parts of this country, villagers have left their area, their villages completely. Many of them are used, Benue State as an example. Many of them are in camps, IDP camps in Makudi. That means what they should have produced in their village, they can't do it as it is now. So government is to do something to help us out with the issue of insecurity. So the government, so the common man on the street, they are responsible for the security, and we're still holding government for our security. So all the powers that be must promote social security again by encouraging peaceful inter-ethnic coexistence, and that will help us in production. This can be done. It can be done using campaigns, can be done sensitizing people all around you, can be done using the traders themselves, can be done, relating with them one-on-one. Another action that we think can be done to make sure that hunger is no more in our nations, in our world, is the use of irrigation system if we're going to produce all through the year, then irrigation system of farming should be adopted, and this will increase production and productivity even during off seasons. And with animal production, animal husbandry, crop cultivation is capital intensive. So on the other hand, the major parts of the agro sector that are poor can barely afford the needed facilities to increase productivity. So we should be able to also bring about the issue of credit at a very low interest rate. And this should be made available to farmers to encourage better output. We're not saying don't take interest at all, but at least the interest should be really low for the farmers. As important as increased productivity is, honestly, it can be counterproductive if the excess produced in a season cannot be preserved for future use. And when my director was speaking, he talked about the issue of waste. So there is a need for us to have machines or storage mechanisms that should be put in place, or machines that can process these products into their value chain and be able to store for a longer period to be able to keep us with food. And lastly, I want to say that available and accessible global markets for agro producers will also encourage increased productivity, as farmers will be more willing to put in the work the needed strength to meet the global market. And I believe that once we are able to do that, to reach out with these inputs, the farmers at the different stages of the value chain will be able to feed themselves, sell from what they have, and not be hungry. And once the farmer is not hungry, the family is not hungry, his community is not hungry, the nation will not be hungry, and the world will not be hungry. Thank you very much. And God bless.
Thank you, Professor Ngozi. He really loaded us with a lot of points, strategies, actions, and opportunities for reaching a world without hunger. And I think these are just points, these are big points that we can build more and that can be a policy document to achieving this resilient future for all. And not taking so much of our time because we still have other facilitator on the call this morning, while we also believe that it's also a work day for many of us, and we definitely want to get engaged with so many things as well. We just entertain one or two questions from the participants. Kindly raise your hand should in case you have a question, and we try as much as possible to make it very swift. And as soon as we are done with this session, we'll be having an opening remark from our own person, Professor Akiyemi, representing the Director General of Forest Research Institute of Nigeria. Okay, right now I would like to call on Mr. Kelechi Mati to unmute his mic to ask his question.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kelechi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Kelechi.
Okay. Thank you, our presenter today, the Prof. I so much appreciate your presentation. Thank you for the good work. But my question in this is the strategies. How can strategies be implemented when our leaders are not ready to do it. Why am I saying so? I am a farmer. I own a company. Our leaders today, our politicians, everybody, we organize sweet policies so we can get money. Policies that was designed to achieve an aim. At the end of it, we will forfeit it because of our personal interests. You talk about NISA. NISA was initiated because of the low income earners, the local farmers. And now that NISA has been politicized, it has been hijacked. As I'm talking to you, I have references that I can prove my claims.
Okay,
So,
Mr. Kichi, I'm sorry to cut you. I would just want us to make it very brief. Kindly make it very brief so that he can as well attend to the questions. We have to finish the session as soon as possible.
Yeah. I want to ask Prof, what are the strategies we have put on in place? Because as I'm talking to you now, I'm only seeing 26 participants here. This, was it not supposed to be as a national stuff that everybody will key in? I'm only seeing 26 as I speak. So now, how can we rightly engage our politicians, those in the office there, to implement? What are the measures? What are the mechanisms put in place that they must implement this? Thank you. That's my question. Okay,
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Can I answer that, or you want to ask more questions?
Yes, you can answer.
Okay. Now, if you listened in the first few messages that I sent out, I said it clearly that where there is a will, there's always a way out. The truth is, until we are passionate about issues, particularly in agriculture, we may not get anywhere. As I speak, many people believe, in fact, don't even know that agri is a business. I have taken it upon myself to make it known when I speak to my own students that agriculture is a business. Don't see yourself as someone who is far from the need of the people. And until those who are leading us become passionate, until they are ready to take the bull by the horn, to be sincere with you, hunger can be eliminated from Nigeria. What is it that we do not produce in Nigeria? It's just the people that we have that are making it very difficult for us. Now you put a policy in place. They don't want to hold on to it because of their personal business. But for how long will we continue? So I think it's time we take the bull by the horn and let know what we are doing. Let the people who can, because I can't, except you are at the gate, you can't even make a difference.
Absolutely.
You who knows what to do and cannot do it is because you are not at the gate. But when you are at the gate, be ready to do the needful. You cannot shift anybody now. So what we are looking for is people who are passionate about agriculture, people who are passionate about the things that affect us. You talked about the issue of NISA. To be sincere with you, it pains, it hurts to know that people who are not the real farmers are the ones who are getting the things they are getting. And you ask yourself,
yes, that's correct. Yes.
What can you do? You are not there. I'm not a member of CBN. I don't work in NISA. I don't know who is directly in charge. Even when you know who is directly in charge, it's only if that person is ready to stand and do the needful. If not, so I think it's high time we began to do the right things. Let's try and pray that the right people are in the right places. That's all.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that wonderful response. It's high time we start doing the right thing and get the right people on board who can represent us across all levels of governance. I would like to call on Mr. or Mrs. Mustafa to please unmute his mic to ask a question.
Sorry, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
It is Mr. Mustafa, so to say. This is wonderful presentation, I have to admit. In fact, it gave me so much of knowing what to do, thinking of how to do it, except the relative part of the answer you have made now, that one has to take the bull by the horn. But one of the concern I have through some of the points you have raised and through some of the solutions and actions you advise is strictly going directly to the policies, to the regulation that government need to do for others to benefit. But is there any way categorically that you can at least advise or put to thought that people need to do personally in order to be sustained to those such goals that should be attained, at least for the betterment of individuals to collective societies?
Okay, all right.
That's the question.
Oh, all right, thank you very much. One thing I want to let us know in the issues of policies, government does not just bring a policy just like that. There are stakeholders who come around, sit down, they discuss it, and they come out with a paper that government looks at and then, takes a decision on what to do. So in making these policies, you and I are part and parcel of it, because the stakeholders come around, even the farmers are invited, the researchers are invited, the ministries are invited, everybody comes around to do it. The PPPs, the private practice people, they also come around. Yes, so it's a collective issue. The unfortunate thing is who is there to bring it to pass. Now, we can't be there. And we're asking ourselves, okay, how can I as an individual do the best I can? I can assure you, I'm a farmer. And I don't wait for government to give me the money to do anything. The little I have, I make the best use of it. So, and like I said, it's a thing of the mind. It's a determination. I don't have the wherewithal. I have just a small land, but I can tell you categorically, for over 5 years now, I make my gari myself. I produce my cassava myself, just behind my house. I make my apple myself. I plant my beans myself as a cowpea. So you have to do something to help yourself. During the dry season, yes, we don't have water. So what I do, I go on irrigation production. As it is now, I've planted my vegetables, the ugu that I sell during the dry season. And from the little money I get from it, I had to get into drip irrigation to help myself. I bought the kit myself. I didn't get it from the money paid me. I bought it from the money I get from the produce. It's not a big plot. It's a small one that I can maintain without stress. And I know that each time I harvest to sell, I make at least 6,000 naira from my ugu production in a day. So weekly, at least I make that in that small plot. So yes, you may not have the right to be in a place and not be at the gate. Yes, you may not have the nicer money to go ahead and do something, but you may start little. Your little beginning will definitely get you to a bigger one. The most important is to take a step, and then you grow in it. Don't mind what is happening everywhere. We're talking about hunger. As long as you are not hungry, your family is not hungry, your neighbor may not be hungry, because you will have excess to sell to the person. We'll get there one day. So
thank you very much, Prof. I really love that last point. Your little beginning will definitely get you to a bigger one. and the action at which whereby you produce what you eat, you grow what you eat, and definitely it's one of the strategies whereby we can use to achieving these sustainable and resilient food systems in Nigeria. I really want to appreciate you, Ma, for this knowledge you've shared with us this morning. And definitely, I know that you are still on the call with us, but we would like to move to the next session, and that's an opening remark from Professor Akiyemi, representing the Director General of Forest Research Institute of Nigeria. Thank you, sir, for joining the call, and our sincere apologies for the inconvenience. And yes, I understood what you had to go through joining this call this morning. Thank you. And all our participants joining virtually, please feel free to drop your comments, your questions on the comment section, and definitely feel free to network to all other change makers. I know there is nobody on this call that's not practicing or contributing to achieving zero hunger. So let's endeavor to network across boards. Okay, this morning I'm also glad to acknowledge the presence of Professor Saka Oladun Injimo. Is the Director of Center for Sustainable Development, University of Ibadan. We are glad to have you on this call, sir. And right about now, I would like to invite Professor Akiyemi to give his opening remarks.
Yeah. Thank you very much, the coordinator of the program. I want to apologize on behalf of the Director General, Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, Professor Adeshola Adepoju, who is unavoidably absent. He is presently on a national assignment. I'm pleased to be invited to give opening remark on the theme, building a resilient food system in achieving sustainable living for all. I would like to appreciate the organizers of the event, Sustainable Development Solutions Network, for this distinguished gathering to share information and experiences on this crucial topical issue. Sub-Saharan Africa is home to 60% of the world's remaining arid land, yet the continent struggles to feed itself. The causal factors for this problem have been attributed to critical issues, including conventional agricultural practices, reduced production, decreased productivity, unsustainable agricultural intensification and practices, and increased post-harvest losses, coupled with a lack of infrastructural development in rural areas, poor food supply chain system, equitable land tenure system, and income disparities among members of the society and among others.
The session
It
will
has become a critical issue at a time when biodiversity loss and climate change are becoming more urgent and complex problems. Food is one of the basic necessities of life. It plays a significant role in sustenance of mankind. It is so important that out of 17 sustainable goals set by the United Nations to transform our world, 10 are relevant to food systems. The food SDG is to end hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. That is SDG 2. This is linked to other goals, including no poverty, SDG 1, good health and well-being, SDG 3, decent work and economic growth, SDG 8, industry, innovation and infrastructures, that's SDG 9, reduce inequality, SDG 10, sustainable production and consumption, SDG 14, and ecosystem, biodiversity, and forest, SDG 15. Food system is the network of activities connecting people to their food. Food systems operate at multiple spatial scales and include production, distribution, marketing, and consumption components connected through complex social, ecological, and economical relationship. There are other important terms that are important to note anytime concept of food system is being discussed. These are food accessibility and resilience. The former is concerned with the physical and economic ability to acquire food, while the latter is the capacity of a system to withstand shocks. In essence, food systems are resilient, must contain buffering capacity of a system that could enhance its ability to adapt to changes and recover quickly from any shock. Towards building a resilient food system, there is the need to overcome the challenges of food production systems through sustainable strategies, which include all the activities directed towards overcoming the global issues that are threatening food production system. These challenges are climate change, environmental degradation, and biodiversity loss. Climate change is one of the factors within physical environment influencing food system. Other issues related to physical environment are soil fertility, natural disasters such as flood and drought. Hence, adapting food systems to climate change will be crucial if it is to achieve sustainable living. Climate impact will continue to increase vulnerability and low capacity, leading to food crisis. Climate change and healthy ecosystem are inseparable from affordable and safe food. Presently, the demand for food by the growing population is increasing in the midst of climate change crisis. And in order to meet the demand for food, there is need for sustainable agricultural practices to increase food production. Food production system is not the most vulnerable sector to the adverse effect of climate change. In fact, food production sector is directly responsible for global greenhouse gas emissions. Agricultural sector is a key driver of other ecological problems that include deforestation, land and environmental degradation, and biodiversity loss. One of these sustainable practices that should be adopted for building a resilient food system in achieving sustainable living for all is climate smart agriculture. This sustainable option is a technique that encourages development of food production system with a set of practice and approach that is capable of achieving multiple objectives and increase resilience in food production and low emission development. Climate smart agriculture focused on strategic effort of integrating climate change and agriculture in development planning with a view to aggregating opportunities to link adaptation and mitigation efforts. The operation of climate smart agriculture is based on 3 pillars: increased agricultural productivity in a sustainable way, climate change adaptation, and reduced greenhouse emission. Food production system that is sustainable must pursue these 3 objectives. The main target of climate smart agriculture is to ensure productivity, improve ecosystem services, and achieve farmers' resilience to climate change. Another crucial component to sustainable food system is value chain. Achieving food and nutrition security for a sustainable living is a function of resilient food chains to the 3 pillars of sustainable development, that is environmental, economic, and social indicators. Agricultural value chains cover a wide range of activities and services required to bring food products through phases of production and distribution among final consumers. The importance of value chain is that value or services is added to the product across link to the next stage of product development. Efficient and resilient value chain system can contribute to food sustainability and poverty alleviation by increasing productivity, increasing income, and employment creation. Furthermore, adoption and practice of agroforestry is one of the ways to ensure security, to ensure food security, increase Nigerian forest cover, enhance forest conservation service for environmental problems, and more importantly, to reduce poverty through employment opportunities. Adoption and scaling up technological improvement will go a long way in building sustainable, resilient, and efficient food system. This will include mechanization of cultivation, crops and animal biotechnological improvements, agrochemicals, manufacturing, harvesting, processing, and storage, climate and environmental smart adaptation, irrigation, use of ICT in information marketing and agricultural business, amongst others. The role of financial institutions through provision of credit facility for agricultural production, distribution, marketing, and other related agricultural businesses cannot be overemphasized. In conclusion, building a resilient food system and achieving sustainable living for all is achievable if many challenges facing food production system are properly addressed. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all fruitful deliberation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Akinyemi, for this thoughtful presentation. And each and every presentation that we've been having this morning is really a call to action for us, and like it's high time for us to get engaged. Before we move to the first plenary session by Farmer Samson, I would also like to call on our own Professor Jimo Saka, who is the director of Center for Sustainable Development, as he gives his own opening remarks as well.
Good morning, Mr. Ola-Olowoyo.
Good
Thank
morning,
you for
sir.
this opportunity to make a remark at this very auspicious occasion. I'd like to recognize.
Just a minute. Please, we might have to mute each and every one for us to have a smooth event. And just in a minute, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Can I go on?
Yes, sir, you can go on, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Yeah. Good morning. Again, I thank you for this wonderful opportunity to make a short remark on this very important occasion. I thank you also for organizing this very relevant workshop at this point of our national development. I would like to recognize the National Deputy Director, Sustainable Development Solutions Network Nigeria, Professor Ngozi Odiaka. I appreciate Professor Akinyemi, my own dear brother, who just spoke. And through him, I thank our own Professor Shola Adepoju, the DG of Forest Research Institute of Nigeria. He's always been with us in matters of development. I greet all the people who have participated, who have contributed in one way or the other to the success of this workshop. Let me say that this is a very important topic, given our current situation, both in Nigeria, in Africa and even globally. The issue of food security is very fundamental. It has reached a situation where people's food security is under serious threats. This calls for a radical rethinking of our food system. And as rightly opined by Professor Akinyemi, when we talk of food system, it's a whole lot of ramification, starting from the production to the distribution and to the final consumption of the food. So and when we talk of building resilience, it means we are talking about sustaining the food production system. Resilience means ability of a system to recover from shock. When there is a disturbance, the system strives to go back to normalcy. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Okay, the system strives to go back to normalcy. The ability of that system to go back to normalcy, to return to its ambient condition, is what is termed resilience. So if you want to build a food system that is resilient, then we have to look at all the stages involved in food production, supply, distribution, and its consumption. If you start from production, Professor Odiaka has challenged us to produce what we eat. This is very fundamental. So I will not stress that any further, but I want to advise that in the process of producing the food that we eat, and even the one that we want to also sell, because it's important that we produce more than we eat. The assumption is that if everybody produces what they eat, then there will be food security. That is very true, but it's not everybody that is able to do that. But those who are doing it are commended. However, the system that supports that production must be taken into consideration in the process of production. For instance, the use of agrochemicals has become very rampant in our system today. Yes, I agree there is no way that we will not use chemicals, but let us avoid those that are extremely toxic to the environment, that will lead to serious environmental degradation, lead to biodiversity loss, and eventually leads to a crisis, including climate change, including flooding and things, because they are all interconnected. So our food production, the process should be such that the system that is supporting that production is maintained. For instance, the biodiversity of our agro ecosystem have to be protected. We need to move away from the use of very toxic herbicides and pesticides to organic chemicals that are more environmental friendly. We should, when we do our land preparation, understand that there are species of plants and animals and microbes that contribute to the resilience of the agro-ecosystem. These, we must be mindful of them before we apply the land preparation system and crop maintenance systems. Okay, in the process of distribution of our food, definitely gone are the days when we use donkeys and horses and camels and human porter to carry our food to the market. We need to use vehicles, lorries and things to transport our food to the market before it gets to the final consumer. This means that we need to burn fuel. We need to utilize fossil fuel. This have to be given critical consideration. You know, how we consume and how we dissipate carbon waste into the environment in the process of transferring our food to the market, even in the process of production. Okay, when the food now gets to the final consumer, the situation whereby the kerosene, electricity, gas are beyond the reach of the common man needs to be examined critically if we must maintain a resilient food production system. There is no way that we can continue this way, whereby people will now go to the forest, are forced to go to the forest to go and harvest firewood, to go and make charcoal in order to supply cooking energy. It is not sustainable because the negative impact of it goes back to the agro-ecosystem and it affects the sustainability of that ecosystem. One other issue that I need to talk about before I leave off is the value chain that the two earlier speakers have spoken about. My little experience as a small farmer is that farmers are being underpaid, farmers are being exploited. So we must find a way of assisting farmers to add values to their produce so that they can earn, reasonable income from their efforts. Today, if you produce your cassava, if you produce your maize, if you produce your egg and your vegetables, marketing becomes an issue. Middle people, whether men or women, are the ones who are ripping off the farmers. They pay very ridiculous prices to the farmers, and when they get to the markets, they multiply the cost and make it virtually unaffordable to the consumers. So we all as stakeholders in our thinking, in our interventions, we must look at a way of helping the farmers to add values to their produce so that they earn better income to improve their livelihood. And if their livelihood is improved, they are able to even produce more food and able to protect the system that support the production of the food. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important topic, and I'm sure we have very experienced resource persons that will do justice to the various sub-themes. I wish us a very successful workshop. Thank you very much. Best regards.
Thank you very much, Professor Jimo. Thank you for the wonderful opening remark. We really appreciate you, sir. Thank you for all you do across board, across the development space. And really want to appreciate Professor Akiyemi for attending and giving the opening remark. We appreciate you both on behalf of the leadership of SGSN. We really appreciate you all, sir. Right away, we'll be going straight to the first plenary session today on catalyzing sustainable agriculture in Nigeria. Here we have an expert in the house who is going to be facilitating this session for the next 30 minutes. And yeah, it's going to be very engaging and it's another level entirely. And in person of Farmer Samson Obodli, he's the team lead of Soilless Farm Lab, where technology is used as enabler for agriculture. Good morning, sir. We are glad to have you in this workshop this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Emmanuel. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope you can hear me. Good morning.
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Good morning, sir.
It's my pleasure. I'm with you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We would like to have your presentation on catalyzing sustainable agriculture in Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Having listened while to the previous speakers, the professors, they've done a lot in that area. When one of the listeners or one of the participants was talking, I remember he asked a question which was centered more around, paraphrasing his question, he said something like, a whole lot of people are saying what the government should do, but he would rather want to see what can individuals do. And that was the crux of my discussion, or that formed my document that I will be using for presentation this morning. Please, you have to, okay, I think I can share. So that's going to form the crux of my presentation, because The reality is today, as we still deal with the whole post-COVID era, there is a need to start asking ourselves, how can we be resilient? And like the last prof said, I love the way professors define things, they make it super easy to understand that resilience only comes after there has been a shock. And now there is a need to know, how do we survive this period? How do we ensure that we are not back to status quo of having same issue again and again? Now, first, it's important we understand what food security is, what it entails. So food security has 5 key denominators or 5 key words. First, it means that food should be available. So what that simply means is, it should not be a thing of, oh, this is rainy season or this is dry season, so this is available this season or this is not available this season. Now,
Hello,
based
sir.
on this
Hello, sir.
alone,
Please, is it
I
possible
make
for you
bold to
to put your
say
slide?
that as a nation, we have never been food secure, because the seasonality in food production has always been a norm. 2 is, food security exists when food is accessible, meaning it's not about the food being available, it's about knowing that I can access it regardless of where I am. So whether I am in the village or I am in the city or I am in the university or in wherever, I should have access to food. I should be able to access food anytime, anywhere. Then of course, there is the consistency in production. Then there is the reality that food is meant to be healthy, not that every bite should be a dose of poison. And much more than that, food should be affordable. And affordability is directly linked to the minimum wage of the people. So it's not about, oh, because yes, we earn different income, but when the minimum wage of a people is known, then about 40% of that wage should be enough to cater for the food needs of that individual. 40% of that income. So if they are a family, 40% of the revenue of that family should take care of their food need properly. That is when food is available. Now, you would agree with me that from all that I have said, that we would agree that right now we are not food secure. So how do we catalyze the process that ensures food resilience? So in my speaking today, I am trying as much as I can not to focus on what the government should do, because I know with that, a lot of us would have the mindset of, oh, I have no say in what happens to my food. This is about what the government would do. And yes, I know, like Prof. Mrs. said, that yes, when they are developing the policies and all, some farmers are there, but the reality is the not practicality now, the reality of those farmers would interfere with what contribution they bring on board when policies are being made. So I want to focus more on personal food security, what you can do. Now, this cannot come at a better time than this, because remember, we just had the flooding, or not even just had, we still have flooding in the north, in some part of the middle belt, and these are the areas that produce most of what we eat. And with this flooding, what this simply means is we are losing a lot of our farms, and this means that by next year, the price of food would go up because there will be less food supply. Add to this the fact that next year again is election period, which means there will be a whole lot of money in circulation with little food to purchase. So it simply means that there is more money than food, and that means the price of food will over skyrocket. So what can we do personally? First is we need to start thinking of how to have home gardens. I know my prof earlier made a statement that not everybody can have a home garden. I beg to disagree. everybody can grow something. If you have a space to lay your head, you have a place to grow something. Today, we have vertical farms that can be on the wall of your bedroom, that can be on the wall of your sitting room, that can be on your shelf. Some of us have places where we are growing flowers. That can be vegetable. We are not saying your home garden should grow everything. But if everybody on this platform, if every of our neighbors can just grow one vegetable, we grow one vegetable, you will agree with me that at the end of the day, because everybody is growing one thing, we can have trade by barter, thus reduce what we spend on food. So we can start working on home garden. I'm very glad that when Professor Mrs. was talking, she said, I have a small ugu farm. So as small as the farm might be, it is a space for income. Much more than that, it is something she does not have to burden the farmers with. You see, with us having access to our own small farms, this ensures that the farmers are burdened on growing what we cannot grow, as opposed to they are growing what we can grow and they are growing what we cannot grow. So there is a need for us to start thinking, what can I grow in this space? What can I grow in the house? What can I grow in my veranda? What can I grow in my backyard? That is number one. Number two, in developing personal food security is some of us have access to lands. One thing I know about most public universities in Nigeria is land is not an issue. There is a need to start consciously converting some of this land into small farms. It can be done in collaboration with the Agric department or Agric universities. It can be done in collaboration with students that there is a shared earning. See, we need to start taking food seriously. The reality remains that people cannot go hungry indefinitely. And if we cannot go hungry indefinitely, it means that at some point, if we are not able to produce what we need, we would be forced to open our borders. And if it gets to the point where we are forced to open our borders, it means that we are voluntarily moving from a free nation back to slavery, because whomever feeds you will determine your policies. Because like Prof. Mrs. said earlier, you want to bring in the specialists in the universities, the specialist farmers to say, okay, come, let's develop a policy. What if you are not producing? It means that you have to call the foreigners to come in and sit with you to develop your policies. And obviously the foreigner is not going to develop a policy for you that shuts out their market, which means we would automatically on our own move from freedom to slavery for the purpose of food. So we need to start looking at how to develop our lands. The empty land, you have a land somewhere, it could be in the city. While you are waiting to have money to develop the property, let it grow something, let it hold something, let it produce something. And of course, we know that in producing something in these lands that are left fallow, this would also help in the sequestration of, what is it called? Carbon monoxide and all, methane and all of that, that are part of the major contributors to climate change. Number three is we need to start engaging our food system. If I could take a poll on this platform and I ask, everybody eats, how many of us know our farmers? How many of us know the particular farm the food we eat come from? The tomatoes, the pepper, the rice, the gari. You don't even know who your farmers are. There is a major disconnect between the consumers and the farmers. But if I ask you who are the makers of your phone, you know the makers of your clothes. There is an accountability between the makers of every other thing and you, the consumer. But there is no connection, there is no line that connects you with your farmers. So you are not engaging the food system to understand how the food gets to you. And this is why a lot of it can be adulterated. The reality is majority of our farmers are not educated, but most of the consumers in the cities are. If there is an engagement, if there is a connection between you and the farmers, you can become the voice of the farmers to help them get what they can't get, to help them voice properly what they cannot voice properly, to help them say what they need to say in a way that it would be heard. And in doing that, you are able to ensure that the food system works for you. Not that the food system works, but that it works for you. You are able to ensure that the food system is creating a solution that you need, not just creating a solution. One of the reasons why the middlemen that have been blamed so much are able to do a whole lot in between the farmers and the consumer is because the consumers do not engage their food system. The consumers are not engaging the food system. All that we know is, oh, if I go on the app and I say I need tomatoes, there is Lagbaja that will go to the market and help me buy my tomatoes, and I am fine. We need to do more than that as individuals. We need to be much more responsible than that as individuals. And finally, we need to curb food waste. If again, I throw out a poll on this platform and I ask, how many people on this platform, if I ask how many people on this platform today can boldly say, I have not thrown away food in my house for the past 1 month, for the past 2 weeks, for the past 3 days, for the past day? How many of us can boldly say that? Because every time you throw away food, you are part of those contributing to food insecurity. Much more than that, beyond throwing away food, we also have food waste in the form of food discrimination. You get to the store, you get to the market, you are like, oh, this tomatoes is not properly rounded the way I want it to be round. So because of that, I don't want it. This banana is not the way I want it to be, so I don't want to pay well for it. The question is, does the look of the produce affect the health benefit inside that produce? So when you are saying that there is a particular way you need your produce to be, what you are telling the farmers is, be willing to discard what is not good enough for the way I like it. So when the farmer has to discard what is not good enough, the cost of what is discarded has to be added to what is given to you in the marketplace. Same for middlemen. So we need to curb food waste. We need to look at behavioral patterns that enables food waste. Top of these behavioral patterns are the kind of parties we have every Saturday, where it is a must to show that your party was well organized and proper. We must have more food that we throw away than the food that was consumed. Where you have people just pick a plate of food, they eat only the meat and discard the rice, beans, and every other thing. These are some of the ways that we are wasting food and contributing to food insecurity. Add to this list the behavioral patterns of people who now, because they want to trend on social media, they are doing a whole lot of funny things with food that at the end you throw them away just because you want to shine. These are things we need to curb. Much more than that is even our eating habits. You need to see where some of us are eating, the amount of food that we eat at a go. The reality is not all of this food that we eat is needed by our body. Instead, what we are building is expensive excreta, expensive shit at the end of the day. Why? There is an amount of food that your body can take through what is called assimilation. That you were able to eat the food into your stomach does not mean your body assimilated all the food. There is a quarter of food that your body needs per day to function. All the rest is waste. It has now become a norm that the proof that you are rich is how big your stomach is. This is not about body shaming, but it's about understanding that there is a need for us to look at how to curb food waste. So I continue. Sorry, I don't know if my system is hanging. Okay, personal food waste, I've talked about this. Okay.
Hello, sir. Please,
Next
can you please, kindly enable full screen?
It's on full screen.
It's not on full screen.
I'm on full screen.
Can maybe you
stop? It's not on full screen there.
Yes. Can you stop sharing and reshare?
Okay, let me do that again.
All right.
My apologies. Let me do that again.
Fine. It's fine. It's really been interesting and engaging.
Okay, thank you. So, okay. I'm going back on full screen. Is it on full screen, please?
It's not on full screen yet. Can you stop sharing and enable full screen before you start sharing? I think.
Okay.
All right, sir.
I've done that. Just a minute. I'm not seeing how to enable full screen.
You can enable full screen on your PowerPoint presentation,
okay.
Then you now start sharing on Zoom.
I've done that. So if I have to come back to Zoom, Zoom would always have to go back to because once you want to switch, so right now it's not on full screen yet.
Not at all. Please,
okay.
I won't like to cut the flow. You can continue with your presentation while you definitely will share the slides with our participants. I won't like to cut the flow of your presentation.
All right, thank you. Next is community intervention. So everybody here, we all live within, or we all live with other people. There is nobody living in isolation. You have a neighbor, there is a religious place you worship. You have communities that you live with or that you live in. Now, as a community, we can also come together and try to take hold of our food security. Now, every area, whether you are in Okokomaiko, Kuru in Jos, anywhere you are, there are plants that do well naturally where you are. There are plants that do well naturally, like you don't have to go the extra mile before they start doing well. Now, rather than trying to grow crops that can only grow in Kafanchan, where you are, take a list of these crops and see how we can grow these crops in your locality. So what I am saying in essence is, you are in Lagos, stop trying to grow apple first. Try and grow crops that we grow in Lagos very well first. Take advantage of your competitive advantage. Take advantage of your environmental advantage. Take advantage of the knowledge in that area naturally. So you are in one village where everybody here, what they know how to grow very well is efotete, that's amaranthus. Stop trying to tell them to grow broccoli or cauliflower. No, you are wasting their generational knowledge. Instead, let's take advantage of that knowledge and have them grow the amaranthus to as much as it can be. Such that when we start doing that, you realize that we can now start thinking, how many more ways can we eat this efo? Because right now, the way you eat the efo is the way that generations have taught us to eat it. But the reality is there can be more ways to eat it. There can be more ways to eat it. I was discussing with my guys, I think on the farm last week, and I was cracking a joke and I said, who says that we must always have eba, soup and fish? Why is it that we cannot create a hole inside the fish, put the eba, stuff the soup, put everything inside, such that when I bite the fish, I bite eba and soup, everything at once? Because we have believed that this is the way it must be done, we have stopped thinking beyond that way. But there could be other ways that we can do things better. Number two is, in our local communities, can we intentionally start creating what I call green areas? So if you go to some of these places they call GROAs and all of that, you see they will provide a theme park inside the GROA. They create a space for sports. They create a space for car park. And I am thinking, the fundamental for survival, which is food, no space is created for it. We need to start consciously creating green areas. Yes, as much as we are trying to copy the civilized world, the civilization, the westernized world and all of that, we need to understand that our realities are different. we are in a space and place where our major issue right now is food. See, if we as Africans, if we as Nigerians remove food from our problem, I can tell you for free that majority of our issues are solved, especially when you realize the fact that we are a people that have bad roads, we have no good medical health care. It means that if we have green areas within our community, we can spend less on transportation of food. It means we can spend less on refrigeration of food because we don't have power to refrigerate. It means that we can eat fresh from the farm. By eating fresh from the farm, it simply means that we can control the amount of insecticide, pesticide, and all the sites they pour in our plants, which means by default, we are healthier, we are saving more money in our pocket, so we are richer. So we need to start looking at ways to do things for us based on our reality as opposed to the westernized region reality. One of the biggest differences today, as far as I'm concerned, between Africa and Asia westernization is Asia westernization picked their knowledge but mixed it with their culture, such that a typical Asian, a typical Chinese man still takes his regular herbal tea. So his civilization did not take away his cultural heritage. But for us in Africa, we are exchanging our cultural heritage for things that are not sustainable for us. So we need to start looking at how to empower ourselves using our green areas. Then much more than that, for most of us in the cities, we have people in the villages that keeps calling us every now and then. Mommy, daddy, please send money for this, send money for that. Most of the time, we are sending them funds for sustaining. We need to move from sustaining these people to empowering them. And agriculture is a tool that can be used for empowerment. Teach them the business of agriculture. Teach them how to farm. You are in the city, you have access to the market in the city. Okay, can you be sending me this every week? And I will be paying for it. That way you make profit that does not just sustain you, but empowers you. So we need to start looking at agriculture beyond, just a means of eating, but beyond that, to empower our generation and lay a foundation for the next. I don't know why this is season. So as I round up my very long talk, thanks everyone for listening. As I round up my long talk, I don't know why this is doing like this, okay? As I round up my long talk, in trying to push for food sustainability from an individual level, we need to put some basic metrics in place. Yes, we want to fill up our hunger. We want to combat hunger. This is the point. We understand to get right at our small scale level. The reason many a time the policies that are given to us does not seem to work is not because the government is not trying its best on one part, but the reality is most of these policies are generated from documents and result from places that they do not really have real farmers existing. How do I mean? So if the government says, okay, now we want to come up with a policy, let's even use the NISA that has been so bastardized. Okay, NISA, we want you to come up with a loan scheme for farmers that can ensure that tomato farmers can get loan, produce enough tomatoes next year, that there will be no shortage and price will not fluctuate all year round. They are like, okay, fine. Or your farmer, come. You say you want to grow tomato. What variety of tomatoes? The reality is most farmers don't even know. You start hearing things like tomato Hausa ni mo fẹ́, tomato Yoruba. What is that in policy development? Now you realize that those who have data most of the time are either those in the educational line who unfortunately, when they were doing their experiment, ensured a perfect environment for this do not represent the reality of the farmers. So in that environment, they can be telling the government that, oh, a farmer can get 30 tons per hectare. Meanwhile, in reality, farmers are struggling to get 5 tons per hectare. So it's not like the educators lied by giving those data, but because they are not connected to the reality of the farmers, They are not looking for where to sell. They do not understand the market dynamics. So what happens? The government has to now look for people that have data, and these people that have data many a time are foreigners who are probably even farming in Nigeria. And the reality is the scale at which they play, the obstacles that they experience is not the same obstacles that the everyday farmer experiences. It's a simple experiment anybody can try. Walk into any government office and try to make inquiry. Then get any white man off the street and give him a fine suit to walk into any government office, the same office you did not get attention for. You will realize the way they are treated. It means that there are answers they get faster than you just because of the color of their skin. And the data they have is what will be used to postulate policies for us. So there is a need to start asking ourselves in food sustainability, what is the goal? What is the goal? Considering our reality, I believe that our first aim should be health. We want healthy food. We want food that is healthy. So what is the meaning of healthy for us? We need to decide that. Very important. That's the fundamental. We need to agree what is healthy for us. We need to agree, okay, this is what we define as healthy. Is it tomatoes with 10% lycopene? Is it tomatoes with this amount? We need to decide that first. Two, the second reason why we need to understand this is to push against hunger. Hunger in all its form. Hunger meaning no food, or hunger in the form of hidden hunger, or hunger in the form of one nutrient not being available. We need to agree on what kind of hunger do we want to fight against. Number three is funds. We need to make our agriculture to produce money. Now, permit me to digress a bit, that we need to understand that every crop is either a crop for food or a crop for money. Not all crops are for money. I'll give an example using an analogy from IITA Ibadan, International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. I remember a while back, 2012, 13, 14, I used to be a research supervisor with them in a project called Yam Improvement for Food, Yam Improvement for Income and Food Security in West Africa. And back then we had a quote. We would say, if you want to feed people, grow cassava. If you want to make money, grow yam. Interpretation, there is a crop for money, there is a crop for food. What it simply means is, if I have 1 hectare of these two crops side by side, 1 hectare cassava versus 1 hectare yam, which one can feed more people? Which one can give more money? So we now need to start teaching farmers to say, oh, we know you need to feed your family, but you also need to make money. Can we help you divide your farm between crops A and crops B, such that crops in category A are for feeding first. Crops in category B is for making money first. That way, you know the one that is quenching hunger, giving you health, and you know the one that is giving you money. So we now have two business models centered around these two. Now, when this is understood, agriculture now can be used for empowerment. Agriculture now cannot be an empowerment tool, because we can say, okay, if we are giving loan, we are giving loan to the money-making crops. Let the farmer use their own money, their own profit to take care of the hunger, what's it called? The hunger-based crops, to ensure that they are not hungry. Now, when you have done all of this, see, it is when the farmer is empowered and he knows that hunger will not be an issue, health is not an issue, money is not an issue, that is when they will be concerned about climate change. Flood can sweep the farmer's farm away. The reality is, when the flood comes down, fighting flood is not first on his criteria, because hunger is still killing him. But when all of these are now done, that is when we can now have the proper discussion with a well-fed man that is no longer angry, with a man that his pocket is lined with money, that, see, how do we ensure that your farm is resilient? How do we ensure that your farm is adapting or even combating climate change. There is this thing called carbon score, where farms are paid based on how much they are able to ensure that they are able to mitigate against climate change. The reality is the local farms in Nigeria should be cashing out from that. But no, they are not. Not because what they are doing is against climate change, but because they are not even well fed enough and nobody to play the intermediary role to help them assess what they should get. Then it is when all of this is done that we can start bringing in a whole lot of AI and automation. Because before you start automating, you must ensure that the skilled people of the people you want to automate, you are able to adapt them to new possibilities. Thank you so much for listening. Good morning.
Wow, wow.
If you can hear me.
This is really, really engaging and thought-provoking. Thank you, Farmer Samson, for the knowledge and the innovation which you've shared from your experience, vast experience. I can say that I will just leave it to the audience because I know they have questions, and we already have some questions earlier before you started your presentation, and I'll quickly like to ask one or two. We'll start from a question from Amina Musa. She asks that how can youth be included in decision-making of agriculture? And most importantly, how can they be trained and assisted if they have interest in agricultural activities and innovation of technology to improve agriculture? I believe you have been doing some works around this. I would like you attend to this question personally, sir.
Okay.
And if you also have a question, you can raise your hand or
use.
Okay, sir.
Yes, you can just come to the farm. I mean, we have a lot of free training options available on okay, I think that's direct. So I've sent that. We can come to the farm. We have a lot of free training right now. We just started free 3 months training for about 70 people on the farm. Yep, we have free periodic work and learn for a week where participants can stay on the farm, learn how to grow plants without soil and all of that for free. So yes, we have options and all available.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Should you? Does anyone have any question? I would just like to take direct questions from our participants who are online. Okay, he has shared the website. For those who are online, you can definitely connect to him. Then there was a question from Joseph Adeboye. He asks that food waste from farm to the tables of consumer is also a great problem. What can be done locally? And there is also another question in which he asked regarding the menace of flooding and erratic weather conditions. Is there any forecast system that can help farmers plan their planting system in Nigeria?
Yes, so thank you for that. The first part of food waste on the farm, what can be done? Number one is the farms can be closer to the city. The closer the farms are to the city, the less the food waste. That is number one. Now, number two is if we engage our food systems better, the farmer, most of these farmers in the rural areas are illiterate. So they do things the way they have always done things, meaning there is no innovation in how they do things. But an educated person can step in and say, okay, Oga, instead of harvesting these tomatoes when it is fully ripe, make we harvest them 1 week to when it go ripe. Send them like that, it's still there, okay. So there is a need to engage the food systems. When you engage the system, you realize that there is a whole lot you can help the farmers do. Then number three is we also need, in engaging this food system, you are able to let the farmers understand that these things you are throwing away because you think we will reject them. because they are not fine enough. No, we will accept them. Because some farmers tend to throw away some things they feel consumers will say this is not good. Consumers will say this is not fine. And unfortunately, the farmers are right. This has been the norm. This has been the norm. Then, of course, number 4 reason why we have a lot of food waste is seasonality in production. Again, this is because the farmers know that there is a time we cannot produce. Hence, Prof. Mrs. talked about the fact that if they know that there can be irrigation for dry season, these farmers will not overproduce during rainy season. Then, being able to differentiate food for produce for food and produce for money would also help the farmers a long way. I can't remember question number 2, but that was question number 1. Please, question number 2 that you asked.
The second question is basically on the aspect of climate. He asked that
the flooding issue.
At the presence of flooding and erratic weather conditions, are there any forecast system?
There are a lot of forecast systems available by NIMET. But you see, the issue is NIMET is a research institute. Farmers are illiterate, or even the literate farmers do not even have that time or have ever thought of going to go and meet NIMET to ask, what is the prediction of weather for the next 6 months, 3 months? How much rain should I expect? How much flooding should I expect? What does this mean for my area or my locality? These informations are out there. So there needs to be somebody who turns this into a business to take the report of NIMET to the layman's understanding. Take, for instance, I know for Ogun State where I am, NIMET had a document that showed how much rain to expect per area, different part of Ogun State. When there will be flooding, the area's flooding would affect and all of that. But the issue is NIMET has the document in their own office. The farmer is in the bush in a Wekoro. There is nobody in the in-between to connect that information to the farmer. Now, there are extension workers in Ogun State. It's about 1 extension worker to about 2,000-3,000 farmers, which you know is not sustainable. So even if you have the extension worker get the info, the extension worker may not even understand this information well enough to distill it to the understanding and application of the farmer. So in this area, this is where youth can pick up a business, turn it into their own business of, okay, I am the one that will be advising farmer. When I advise farmer, farmer pay me back in produce because I've helped you increase your profits instead of trying to get it in funds. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farmer Samson. Sorry, I'm using Mr. So the very last question I have here is from one of our participants. How do we create a better future for farmers that's both environmentally and economically sustainable? And how can we improve farmer sustainability beyond just focusing on what they are producing now? How can we improve more on their sustainability and their welfare as well?
So the thing is, until the farmer is profitable, nothing is sustainable. It's that simple. And that would begin from us as a country deciding what we want to use agriculture for. Now, agriculture, I'm sure some of us have heard this statement that agriculture is a tool. You hear things like agriculture is a tool for economic development and all of that story. Now, yes, truly agriculture is a tool. Now, if it is a tool, the question then becomes a tool for what? Agriculture can be used for one of 3 things. Number 1, food security. Number 2, income. Number 3, jobs. We need to first agree, what do we want to use agric for? Is it food? Is it income? Or is it job creation? Because that will determine our policy. That will drive the kind of tools we are adopting. Very, very fundamental. And once we have agreed, it will pick the kind of crops we want to grow. It will pick the kind of technology we want to deploy. Now, that would help inform the kind of knowledge we want to share with the farmers. Much more than that, it will help us bring farmers to the table to say, this is how we want to operate. This is what we want to do. So take, for example, Ondo State is known for high production of things like yam and cocoa. So we can now say, okay, let's go to Ondo State. Ondo, we want to get yam for making alcohol. And the kind of yam for alcohol that is best for alcohol is water yam. That is the alata species. So in that case, if you want to participate in giving us yam to produce alcohol, we are using these two local governments that has 50,000 hectares. This is the tractor. Tractors come and prepare the land for yam production only. Now, as a farmer, I understand the company that we buy my yam is waiting. The only yam that we buy is alata, water yam. I know the size they want. The tractor comes, works for everybody. The manure people come, help us place manure for everybody. We get our mini set or our vine cuttings from aeroponics. We plant everywhere. So while you are doing all of this, it is time for weeding. Because I know the market is waiting now. You tell the market, because these guys are local farmers, they cannot wait for 9 months without earning anything. From the perotted amount that their yam will give to them. Maybe their yam is supposed to give them 10 million naira. Let's be paying them salary every month of 100,000 naira. So every month, the farmer gets 100,000 in his account. Every month, 100,000. By the 9th month, he has received 900,000 naira salary. By the 10th month, when they are bringing out the tubers of yam from his farm, they calculate and say, okay, you've taken 900,000 as loan in the form of salary. Your remaining 10 million will now be 1 million. He gets his remaining 9.1 million. That farmer has built resiliency. Because when it is time for the next season, you are not going to beg him. Because he knows that by joining this scheme, what I will eat daily is not an issue. Because the off-taker is committed to me to provide me salary per month till I am able to sell my produce and they will deduct whatever they gave to me in the form of loan. Worst case scenario, you can even say, okay, because of the 100,000 I was giving to you monthly, instead of paying you 9.1 million, you only get 9 million. We have taken 100,000 as profits for loaning you 100K for 9 months. With that, you have built in resiliency. The reality is, if the farmer is not sustained first in his food, second in his pocket, every other thing we talk around climate change, the farmers would not accept it easily. Absolutely. It's like telling a man that we want to teach you how to ensure that you are able to save your certificate in your house, but his house is burning. What concerns the man to be saving certificate when the house is burning? His first thought is, let me first save my house. Paslow's law of a hierarchy. The first fundamental need for any man is hunger. The man has not solved hunger. You are telling him climate change. You'll be like, let the earth burn and people dying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Farmer Samson. I just have to recognize the presence of Professor Jimo. He has a comment. Sir, please kindly unmute, Professor Jimo to speak. I can see his hand up. Hello, sir. You can speak now, sir. You can speak. Hello, Professor.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay, yeah, I want to commend Farmer Samson for that very educating presentation.
Thank you, sir.
And I want to say that I enjoy also his title, Farmer Samson. That people are now becoming proud to be known as farmers. It's part of what took us to where we are when we shied away from the professions of our fathers and our forefathers, and we thought that whatever that has to do with farming is dirty and derogatory and, something that should not be identified with civilization. We got it wrong. And I'm happy that somebody like Farmer Samson is bringing us back to a line of progress. Having said that, my question, I could see that you are a practicing farmer. And as a teacher, I have a lot to learn from you. There is a challenge currently that I face that I know that also so many other people would face. And that's the challenge of reconciling the issue of resilient system, sustainability of agro-ecosystem with the problem of shortage of labor. If I may make that clearer, we are saying that, yes, don't use heavy equipment. Use light equipment, and as much as possible, conserve the biodiversity, conserve the soil. But if you want to use human labor, it's a challenge now everywhere that I know. They are not available. The few ones that are available, they take your money, they will not do the work. That's one aspect. The other aspect, which also has to do with the resilience of the agro-ecosystem, is the use of agrochemicals. I am an advocate of zero agrochemicals on farms. However, in the last 2 years that I went into small-scale farming, I found out that it is hardly practicable that you have a farm now and you not use either herbicide or pesticide. If you say you don't want to use herbicide, it means that you have to find a way of weeding your crop or weeding your farm manually. Like I said, the labor is not available. You, as a person, you cannot do it alone. You can't do the weeding yourself. Okay? Then you have the problem of pest infestations on your crops, whether vegetables, whether maize, whether tuber crops. How do you control these pests with minimal damage to the environment? You that are in the business, how do you handle it? Thank you very much. That's my question.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much, sir, and for the commendation. Thank you very much, sir. It's always a very proud moment for us when a professor tells us we did a good job. Thank you, sir. So, question one, the issue of labor. Now, labor has become a big issue right now in the country. And like I always tell people, so because I'm going to try and answer it as much as I can, since I don't have that issue, and I would explain how I have been able to overcome that issue. But first, I will speak generally. Generally speaking, when we look at the issue of labor, the question usually is, how much are we paying laborers? Let's be sincere. How much are we paying these laborers that come to the farm to work? Is it enough? Is it actually sustainable? If we were in their shoes, we remain in the job, or we'll go and look for greener pastures. I think the reality is the payment is low. And the reason why the payment is low is not far-fetched. The earning for the farmers too is low. So it's not like the farmers are trying to pay low because they want to punish these laborers. So we now realize that it's a case of asking, how can I increase my yield per square meter such that I can pay my laborers well and not run at a loss? So that is usually for me the key question, because if I can earn more per square meter, then I can afford to pay the laborers working with me well, in a way that I am not robbing Peter to pay Paul. So the key to this is there is a need to increase our yield per square meter, full stop. Once we can do that, we are able to make more money per square meter. Thus, we are also able to ensure that we can pay our laborers better. I don't know if that answers the question. Then, of course, I know there is the obvious part of some of these laborers are not even properly trained to manage farms. Right now, I know that there are organizations like Farm Help and Co. who are now working on providing well-trained laborers to manage farms, as opposed to just having people who are not trained, so that the investment on the farm is not a risk. Then the second part of the question that Daddy asked was on agrochemicals. And let me say this, that for a lot of listeners, thanks to Daddy for being very honest, because you see, that was the point I was trying to make earlier when I said, many a time, somebody can sit in the office and thinking, oh, why are they using this chemical and that chemical? But like Daddy has said, it was when he got to the field that he realized that this is not easy. Now, how do we manage pests and diseases in a way that the consumers are still eating healthy food, in a way that we are not poisoning those who are buying from us? How do we ensure that? Now, this is very simple. I will use an analogy, then come back to the question. Right now, if I walk on the street, I have no injuries, any physical sore on my body. You will agree with me that no flies will follow me. But if I have a cut on my body and I have a sore, because of that sore, if I don't have it properly treated and covered, there is a probability that flies will follow me. Now, if those flies come, there are two ways I can decide to attend to the flies. I can decide to take chemicals and be spraying the flies that come per time, or I can decide to treat the root cause, which is the sore on the body, to ensure that the flies do not have anything attracting them. Pests and diseases are the same way. Now, it's not like there are no spores and all of that in the environment. But if the plant itself is not healthy, then they become highly susceptible to these diseases. Because by default, I mean, let me put it this way. Have we ever asked ourselves, why is it that most of these things that we refer to as weeds on the road, they don't seem to have too many pests and diseases attacking them? Because in being in nature, they've been able to build their own personal resistance, their own resilience, to ward off some of these pests and diseases that we attack them. So there is a need first and foremost to help the plant build up proper immunity. And this starts from the health of the substrate that we are using to grow, whether it is soil or soilless. How healthy is that substrate? How healthy is it that such that the plant is able to fortify itself to be healthy enough to fight these diseases? That is number one. That is the number one the first set of defense for these plants. Now, when that is done, we now have other things that we can use, such that agrochemicals is not the first. You can use things like sticky trap. We can use things like pheromone trap. Pheromone traps are traps that you set because normally every insect that is in its mating season releases a kind of pheromone, a kind of insect that other insects will smell and feel like, oh, it's time for mating. And now there are traps that have been developed that you can place strategically on your farm that smells like this insect is in its mating season. So instead of this insect to attack your crop, they go to the trap thinking this is where we are to mate. They get there, they get stuck, and your plants are fine. So we have other means that can be used. Then thirdly, even if agrochemicals have to be used, if they are applied correctly, you will not have any input deposit within the plant. How much more accumulations within the plant? I don't know if that answered the question, sir.
Thank you very much, Farmer Samson, for that insightful answer. I really appreciate every bit of it. It's been a wonderful session with you indeed, and I believe each and everyone enjoyed it. Great value for the time. On behalf of SDSN, on behalf of the leadership of the organization, really want to appreciate you for taking the time to facilitate the session on catalyzing sustainable agriculture in Nigeria. Thank you very much, sir. And definitely, I know that there are further engagements beyond the conference, beyond the workshop. There are we are going to have subsequently. And yeah, let me just hold it now. And I would like to call on my co-moderator in person of Isholua Deniji to move on with the session. Over to you, Isholua.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel. Thank you. And thank you to Mr. Farmer Samson. That was a great session. In fact, I am blessed being here. That was a great session. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. Speak on.
Okay. So Farmer Samson's presentation was a great one. Yes. In fact, on my side, I am so happy being here. And this is a challenge to everyone. We need to get our hands on something. Yes. Okay, so for this panel session, I have Dr. Olaide with me here. So I'll be asking Dr. Olaide some questions right now, and later on I will ask Farmer Samson some questions. And I would want you both to please give us
Sorry, just in a brief minute, I think she's off network. She'll be back shortly, just in a brief minute. Sorry for the break. I think I'm trying to connect back to Mrs. Sholua as she joins back on. Okay, yeah. Thank you for coming back, Sholua. Hello, Isholua, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here, please.
All right, we can hear you. You can speak on, please.
I think my network is actually bad. I can't hear you.
Okay. All right.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you if you can
Okay,
hear us.
okay.
All right.
Okay, yes, I can hear you. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so right about now, we have the plenary session 2, approaches for sustainable food production and consumption system. Okay, so this session will be taken by Dr. Olaide. Yes, it will be taken by Dr. Olaide. And Dr. Olaide is the president of Africa Circular Economy Research and Policy Network. Is a freelance and also the president of Images Initiative, Interconnections for Making Africa Great, Empowered and Sustainable in 2017. So now we want to engage Dr. Olaide. So do we have Dr. Olaide now?
I think, yeah, he's on the call. He's sharing his slide already.
Okay.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Okay,
Welcome, sir. Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Just in a minute. Yeah, you can comment now.
Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Sir.
I'm pleased to be here this afternoon, except that you told me I will be presenting at noon. Now it's almost midday, half past noon. But not to worry, that means I have about 2 minutes to do this presentation. But that's a joke anyway. How much time?
Thank you, sir.
How much time do I have, please?
Okay, sir, you have about 10 minutes, sir.
Okay, so that's fantastic. Okay, I don't know if you'd like to see my video. I'd like to show my video. You have asked me to, once again, let me say happy World Food Day, which was marked yesterday. And now we are commemorating the World Food Day with the National Food Fest. And it's my pleasure to be here today. I've been asked to present on approaches for sustainable food production and consumption systems. Yes, my presentation outline as follows. Since I have 10 minutes, I have to run. Okay. We all know that.
You have 15 minutes.
You have increased it. I wish you increase my salary as you increase my time.
Yes,
like
sir, because no problem, sir. We look forward to having a nice session with you, sir. All right, sir.
Salary like the rate you increase that time, but it's fine. All right. Okay, I was saying that food food is essential for life. It helps us to grow and to keep healthy, and also to be productive. Okay, so we need food to ensure at least these 3 things, apart from other things. Food can also be used as instruments of bargaining or trade. We used to have trade by barter. So you give me food, I give you the items that you need. If I need food, you give me food. It can also be an instrument of conflicts, whereby you can decide to withdraw food supplies or try to supply food to a conflict zone. So food is very essential. Our food system therefore connects and harnesses the processes of inputs, processes, outputs, distribution, and distribution channels of food. I'll come back to this shortly. But when you talk about food system, you talk about many things that are interconnected, just like our name says, the connections for making Africa great, empowered, and sustainable initiative. So we try to connect many dots, as it were, to enhance the food system. So agriculture is not by accident that I put agri and culture, because agriculture is actually a culture. It is a way of life, okay? And it's the foundation of the food system. So without the agriculture, you cannot have the food system, okay? The presenter before me talked about planting the soil and using soilless, that is using different substrates. But we know that agriculture is not just about crop. Agriculture is about livestock. Agriculture is about fishes. Agriculture is about forestry. So when we talk about agriculture, you don't just focus on crop, but we have people who specialize on crop, so that's no doubt. But you don't need, all you need to grow is not just about crop. You need other things to be nourished. And even when you talk about crops, you need variety of crops. So the culture in agriculture is that we need, this is our way of life, and we need diversity of nutrients to be able to grow. Don't forget growth, health, and productivity. Okay. So this is frozen. Okay. So if and when we talk about food production, what are we talking about? We're talking about a method of production that using processes and systems that are, one, non-polluting. I think you don't pollute the environment, and the environment in this case, I mean the soil, the air, the water, the resources are not polluted. Then we talk about you are using sustainable production. We also mean that you are conserving non-renewable energy and natural resources, okay? And you are using more of renewable energy and natural resources in production. For instance, if you use tractor on the farm, and the tractor is using fossil fuel, or you're using diesel generator on the farm and all that. So the production system, don't forget I say system, is a continuum of from input to output to trading from, you say, from farm to the table. Everything that you need you use in the process of production, output, marketing, and consumption must be sensitive to these issues. The other thing is that it must be economically efficient. Okay, the last speaker also mentioned about profitability, but let me say that the reason why we go to farm, or why you farm, or why you in agriculture is not just essentially about making profit, as it were. Sometimes you enjoy doing what you do, okay? And if you ask all farmers, ideal farmer rarely make profit, but is satisfied that he's able to feed his family, is able to cater for many things, and at least have a little to break even. But usually profit is not the motive of the farmer, if you ask them from experience. The other thing is that you must have safe, the environment must be safe for workers, communities, and consumers. Okay, the ability to have a safe environment for your workers, for your communities, that your community is not polluted, consumers are not getting down in terms of health as a result of consuming your food or that you produce, then it's good for food production, sustainable food production. The other thing is that you do not compromise the need of the future generation. We talk about sustainability and sustainable development here, that you don't deplete the resources such that future generations are not able to meet their own needs. Okay. I'd like to provide a few examples of what we call, what I could term as sustainable food production systems. First is permaculture. Permaculture is a type of culture on agriculture that uses crops like fruit trees, nut trees, shrubs, that function together in a design system that mimics how plants grow in the ecosystem. In this is similar to agroecology system, whereby you mimic the natural environment, but at the same time you are planting what you call permanent crops. So perma there means permanent crops, and you have that type of systems. Okay. The other thing is biodynamic. Okay, so this is a type of systems that is resilient and capable of supporting people and other living organisms. So in a microorganism or macroorganism, is trying to mimic and make sure that all the ecosystem is balanced and there's no ecological overload or overshoots in the system. The other system that is also popular is called hydroponics or aquaponics. This is the hydroponics has to do with using water-based systems to grow your crops, and this is usually common in vegetable shrubs and a few fruits. Okay, whereas aquaponic systems also use aqua water or hydro also water system that include fish and plants. So when you combine fish with aquaculture and of course, and some plants in the same system, you have the aquaponics. In terms of food security or other thing, we also know that most people often refer to agriculture as rural based, but there are also agriculture in the urban setting. Okay. For instance, in my house, I have a garden, and there's this experience I had recently. One of my neighbors came to me early in the morning, around 6:30, 7 a.m. He said, "Oh, can you please give me some pepper? My family want to make eggs, want to fry eggs with pepper." And I was surprised that he could come to me that early. Then after that experience, I reflected that, wow, what I've expressed this morning is actually food security, because food security has to do with access, availability, and stability. So it means all this that I've been enjoying, but I just need to take pepper to do one or two things, tomatoes in the compound. I set it easily without going 1 kilometer from the house or 5 kilometers from the house to buy. Not that I don't have money to buy, but that it's available, it is fresh, it is organic. It means that I'm doing a good job. And my neighbors noticed that, and he could come to me to say, "Oh, come and give to me." And then after I told him, he saw the nursery that I made in the compound. He said, "Oh, I need to clear some portion in my compound to plant pepper. Would you like to give me some seedlings?" I said, "No problem. When your your land is prepared, you can come and pick some." That is food security, that you can assess what you need within your environment is very good. So we'll talk about urban agriculture, because agriculture is not only in urban, and we'll talk about people not having enough land to plant. And again, the previous speaker mentioned that you can also plant without soil. You can use many substrates to plant. You can plant in bags and other media. So organic agriculture or urban agriculture can be planted. You can have gardens, you can have pens around the house. So that's one way of sustainable food production. Then we'll talk about agroforestry and food forests. So this is also another way of ensuring natural systems that are maintained with forests and crops cohabiting. So when you talk about, because of time, when you talk about sustainable food consumption, what do you mean? Because there's production, after production, ultimately you want to consume, okay? But sometimes we've also found that consumption level or the way we consume is also not sustainable. So what then is sustainable food consumption? Sustainable food consumption is consumption of food or diets that meet the dietary needs of man and society and environment, economy, and culture, okay? That's sustainable consumption. So you need food and you have it when you need it, okay? And it's related to food security, nutrition. So when we talk about sustainable food consumption, we now consider more in terms of diets that you consume, in terms of safety that is associated with the food, and in terms of nutrition. So diet, safety, and nutrition come to play in the space of consumption, of food consumption. But however, we know that there are concerns around these two, that the food is not safe, the environment at which food is produced is not safe. Again, we go back to the production process. Did you use chemical to produce? Chemical in terms of preparing the land, controlling weeds, controlling pests, and disease. And the last speaker did justice to those issues. So what are unsustainable food production and consumption? Contemporary food production and consumption cannot be regarded as sustainable. You are allowed. I've often noticed that if most of the youths that go into agriculture, especially crop production, don't have the strength or don't have the patience to weed or to control the environment organically. So they put a lot of chemical load in the soil, and within 2-3 years of production, they are not able to sustain the production level or in terms of yield. So these are concerns, are growing concerns. So the sustainability of the current arrangement arises from industrialization. We want to produce a lot. We talk about intensification of production, and we just want to produce no standards of in production. Everybody produce and bring to the market and sell and things like that. So in terms of globalization, industrialization, we want to produce at minimal cost and to have a good profit. Also, there's also shifting consumption pattern. I talk about consumption. When you talk about consumption, talk about diet, safety, and nutrition, and the goal of diversity of diets. Now, people don't just want to eat crop-based and protein. They want to take animal-based protein, and these are making production system to be very challenging, and everybody wants to produce. And because of the huge population too, we just don't talk about ordinary way of producing crop from the soil. We talk about soilless production. We talk about cultured materials, like you have cultured meats. You can grow meat in the lab. You don't have to wait for animals to be pregnant, to give birth to young ones and grow and all that. You can grow your meat in the lab. These are concerns because of the increasing population, and there's need to feed a rapidly growing population, and because of many disasters too. So it takes, for instance, in recent times, the flooding incidents are beginning to take that in the next 2-3 months, between next month and March, there are going to be increases in food prices as a result of the flooding incidents. So remember in 2012, it's happened about 10 years after that time. We didn't do it much, and now the floods are here again. And you imagine the farms that have been washed away and people that have been displaced. And it's critical because this flooding incident is happening around the harvesting period. So it's going to be a lot of loss for people. And farmers will not be able to have recoup their money. Also, other things we'll also consider in terms of unsustainability of food production and consumption are the emergence of modern food styles that entails every processed food. So you have many food processed this, processed that, and again, the way those things are produced, the chemical, the carcinogenic substances used in them, it's a departure from what we know as farm fresh commodities. The growing gap on a global scale between rich and the poor, of course, the poor can barely afford food now. An average farmer is a net buyer of food. So even though he produces food, he still buys food at the same time, even much more than he produces. So that continuum is causing a lot of shortcuts the way we produce food, and we don't really care the health in terms of nutrition, safety, and diet. Paradoxically also, food security and made abundance of food. And that comes from the challenge of food loss and food waste that I'll talk about shortly. Now, looking at this structure, when we talk about sustainable food production and consumption, what do we mean? We'll talk about a system, again, that is an interlink, but we are concerned more about the health, we're concerned about the economics and governance, we're concerned about ecology and climate systems. We're also concerned about science and innovation around it. Yes, science and innovation should help us, but most of the time we don't really necessarily deploy this science. We know that nature is endowed with the resources that we need, and if only we can adopt what we call nature-based solution to some of these issues. There are nature-based solutions to addressing issue of pests, issue of weeds, issue of nutrients in soil and diversity of crop. For instance, do you often wonder why do crops have different colors? You know, these are the ways of making us to understand that plants have different colors because they supply different nutrients. In China, your diet, richness of your diet is determined by the variety of colors you have in your plates. But sometimes here, we just eat one type of food, maybe fufu and something else, but we don't think that varieties, a combination of fruit, vegetable, plant-based, crop-based proteins are very essential for us. So those are the issues that we should also be mindful of when we talk about sustainable consumption. I need to run quickly. I know 15 minutes are over now. So when we talk about food production and consumption, we tend to narrow down onto the food system. The food system approach helps us to combine production and consumption in a continuum that is sustainable for us. And when we do that, there are 5 action tracks of the United Nations food systems, as was released in 2021. The action tracks are: 1, we must ensure access to safe and nutritious food. Okay, as to safe, is it what I'm consuming? Is this safe? You know, when you go to eatery, you know, there's too many things to make us to be worried in terms of food, because the way the food is prepared is very important. The types of things they use to cook the food is very important. So in this case, we need to start from the farm to say that, to ensure that we have as much as possible reduce food loss. Food loss often occur in the farm post-harvest and pre-harvest stages. When it gets to the retail stage, then we begin to talk about food waste, and when you come to the table. So between the farm and the table, there are things to take care of. And one of such things would be the safety and the nutrition. You know. And one way of ensuring food that nutrition, because I alluded to the fact that poor people still have to grapple with mono consumption of maybe cassava in the morning, afternoon, and all that. So science, again, looking at the food approach, has helped us to say that, okay, if people, especially poor people, consume type of crop that is naturally based in nutrition, a form of nutrition, maybe carbohydrates, we can fortify. So science can help us to fortify that base, because that is what is available to that community in terms of their culture, but we can fortify, and that's why we have fortified cassava. Now we have vitamin A fortified cassava, or the yellow cassava. So that's one way of enriching the nutrients or nutrition of the food, in this case, cassava. The second action track is shifting to sustainable consumption pattern. Again, I said at the consumption level, what you have is food waste. So food waste, how do you reduce food waste to the minimum level? You'll be surprised that in Africa, we don't have much of food waste because we don't even have enough food anyway. But in other climes, they waste a lot of food, and that is not good. Because when we talk about sustainable development, it's a global goal, and food should not be wasted in any part of the world. And the worst case is to make sure that we move food from surplus end to where it is scarce. Okay, so we should reduce food waste. The third action track is that we should boost nature positive production and sufficient gains. We know that organic agriculture and regenerative agriculture seem to mimic the environment, and the nature is balanced in its form, in its purest form. But sometimes when we introduce external inputs, they tend to make an imbalance in nature. So how then do we ensure that the system of production mimic the nature is by trying to bring some of these ideas by federal type of hormones that the previous speaker mentioned to mimic the environment such that we are still able to produce at optimal level. Again, the soil health is very important. There's an initiative that's been done by African Union that is called Soil Health Initiative, to ensure that the soil, the substrate of production is healthy. If the soil is healthy, the crop will also be healthy. I run quickly because of time. Advanced equitable livelihood and value distribution. In this, we have to ensure the value chain development from input. Who are the inputs? Who are the actors? Who are the farmers, the primary producers? Who are the secondary producers? Who are the off-takers and other issues in the continuum? Who are the processors? And even to the retail and the retail outlets. The other issues we also need to bother about is resilience of the production system. And this is where the issue of climate change comes in. No matter what you do, you have a good yield, upcoming yield, but the moment climate issues, extreme weather strikes, it destroys everything, okay? That's what we're experiencing now in Nigeria. So how do we make sure that our production system is climate proof? To be something that we should also be concerned about. Because if you go to the banks, you get loans, you need to pay back. This reminds me of the anchor borrowers with the CBN, and farmers are not able to pay back because of these vulnerability issues. In rounding up, I want to say that the issue in recent developments in Africa, and especially in Nigeria, but not just in Nigeria or Africa, as you see in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the issue with flooding helps us to rethink our production system. Okay, there's needs to think about how we produce, how we factor weather issues into our production, how we factor environmental issues like pests and diseases and weed control into our production to ensure this. And if there's a dislocation, it causes inflation, high food prices, and of course, ultimately hunger. And again, sustainable development, who says we don't want to eradicate hunger.
Dr. Laide.
Yes, please. This is my last slide, okay? I know. There's need for a food system approach, as I presented through the 5 tracks, okay? And all actors must play their roles, and we don't need to leave anyone behind. I just want to advertise something, since we're talking about food. We have a conference upcoming next year, and we'll be talking more about these issues. We'll be talking about enhancing sustainable management of food waste and food loss. So May 10 to 12, IIT. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Laide. That was a nice session. Thank you very much. Can we all hear me?
Yes, thank you for taking me. Can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So we want to appreciate our participants for joining in. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful session with everyone. Thank you. So on behalf of the SDSN, I want to say thank you very much, sir. Thank you for coming up to talk on this wonderful topic. So right about now, we would have a panel session with you. We'll be asking questions, and we believe you would do justice to the questions. So if you have any questions, please drop in the comment section or signify by raising your hand so we can have the questions. So we can have the questions and answer session now for about 2 minutes before we go
Just
to the last session.
okay. Please, Isholua, I would just appreciate in case we don't have any question, and those of us that have questions, we can still connect with the facilitator for further engagement. It's not ending yet, so that we can just round up with the final session or the panel discussion, basically.
Okay. Okay, so on behalf of the SDSN, I want to say thank you very much, Dr. Laide. It's been an impacting session and then quite insightful. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so right now we all.
Sorry, we are. I think I don't know if it's from my end.
Necessity
Your network, we can't hear you clearly, and I think that should be a network issue.
Okay, can we all hear me now?
All right, that's fine. I think it's okay now. It's better now.
Oh, okay. So right about now we'll be having the panel session with Dr. Olaide. We'll be asking Dr. Olaide some questions. I have a few questions to ask him. Is Dr. Olaide still here with us?
Yes, I think we have Dr. Olaide. We also have Mr. Pelumi Aribisala, and we have more of our facilitators for today, because we really want to make this a more participatory session. And yeah, there are some questions Mrs. Sholua will be asking. We also like Professor Odiaka and Professor Sakajimo and Professor Akinyemi to participate in this final part. It's more of a panel discussion and interactive session while we end today's session.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. So we have Dr. Laide on this panel. We have Mr. Pelumi Aribisala. We have Dr. Akinyemi. We have great people that are really making change on this session. So I have a few questions to ask right now. So we all know that food is a necessity, and in creating a sustainable food chain in our various homes, everyone needs to be included, especially the youths. And I think the narrative is changing. The youths are now being involved. Yes, we are now being involved in creating food chain and security for our homes and even our community. So my first question is, how would you motivate the youths to participate in agricultural practice, sir? Dr. Laide, the question is for you. How would you motivate the youths to participate in agricultural practice?
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. I think the youth will have to be willing, okay? If you are not willing, there's no amount of motivation that you can give to somebody who is not willing to do something. So you need to first of all get the person in the mood to practice agriculture. And again, when you talk about agriculture, what comes to people's mind readily is production of crops. So that is not correct, or not in totality at least. You can get into any chain or any nodes of the continuum of agribusiness, okay? So the type of agriculture that will be attractive to the youth would be the one that, for instance, will be less drudgery, that you will not less cumbersome in terms of section of manual labor. Okay, so the youth can be involved in the input supply, for instance. The youth, depending on the choice of the youth, first is to present the array of businesses that are in agriculture. So if it's crop, if it's livestock, if it's fisheries, if it's forestry, and any of these, the value chain. So for instance, we take crops. So is it inputs? Is it primary production? Is it in processing? Is it in marketing? Is it in the supplies? So these are the different ways that youth can be involved. There's also depend on the resources at the disposal of the youth, okay? For instance, there are some that are low resource based. I mean, you don't need too much money. In fact, nowadays you can even create a platform that connects people without doing anything. You can be a purveyor of information, okay? Just getting information to people. There are people who work on social media. Instead of making a lot of political noise on the social media, you can be constructive. I know this lady, Yewande, she's based in Lagos. She's into media communication in agriculture. And every week she rolls out newsletter about agric information, food prices, what is happening in the agricultural sector within Nigeria, outside Nigeria. So you can develop content, because that is an area that youths are always very savvy. So you can develop content about agriculture. One of the speakers mentioned that NIMET releases information about weather. How do you be a purveyor of this information to weather at this location and do a lot of advocacy and produce content that will even give you money in this space? So it depends on what you want to do. So if I were to advise, I will first of all know the interests of the youth, and I can advise appropriately on some of these things I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the response. Okay, so now I would like to direct the second question to Mr. Pelumi Aribisala. Okay, so why do you think most Nigerian youths are not involved in agriculture? Because what I get to hear from most Nigerian youth is, okay, we don't have someone to assist us. The government is not ready to empower us. We don't have a large space to start farming. We don't have what it takes to be a farmer. So my question is, why do you think most Nigerian youths are not involved in agriculture? The question is for you, Mr. Pelumi Aribisala.
All right, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, sir. We can hear you. Welcome on board, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, I would like to say that one of the reasons why youth are not involved in agriculture is a matter of can you hear me, please?
We can hear
Can
you,
you hear me?
sir. Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So perfection. Now, the way agriculture is presented is not in tandem with modern day reality. And this is a problem. This is a generational problem or historical problem. If you look at, let's even take it from the beginning, taking it from the scratch. When you look at how you present a farmer, in fact, when you call somebody a farmer, Southwest Nigeria, that is an abuse. When you say, why are you behaving like a farmer? So when you abuse somebody with a profession that is that noble, you expect that people will have some kind of resentment towards that particular thing. If you look at how farmers or agriculture is presented, hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. So if you look at the way agriculture is presented in our curriculum, you see that if you hardly find less than 10% of the people that are professionals or studying agriculture today who really went to the mind to study agriculture. Some of them are people that have been wounded from other professions like medicine and pharmacy, or they couldn't enter to one course and they find themselves in agriculture. So when you see people like that, like what the previous speaker said, the willingness is not even there for them to want them to go into agriculture in the first place. Then when you now look at our society, when you look at the environment in which these youth of today are growing, see, the way agriculture has been presented, the youth are far ahead of the way agriculture has been presented in terms of technological advances. So today, it's important that we take agriculture to that level of technological involvement, technological advancement. That is what can make the youth find their place or their places in the sector. Today, agriculture is beyond just tilling of ground, it's beyond crop cultivation, it's beyond raising of animals and all of that. So the definition of agriculture itself needs to change. So agriculture is already beyond that. And the only way you can make youth have interest in agriculture is let them see the opportunities in the entire value chain of agriculture so that they can know where to fit in. There's no point going to till the ground and cultivate crops if what you want to go into is agricultural machinery, if what you want to go into is agri-technology, if what you want to go into is agro-logistics, if what you want to go into is value addition, how about commodity trading? How about soilless farming, aquaponics, aeroponics, and the rest? Agriculture has really advanced. So youth are not really in our society, in Nigeria, for example, agriculture is not at the level of the current advancement in technology today. And as a result of that, a lot of this still see agriculture as a poor man's job, a poor man's profession, or something that they just do on the sideline. And that's why you see a lot of people today losing a lot of money in agriculture, because they are taking agriculture as a side hustle. Agriculture is full-time job. Full-time job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that answer, sir. Okay, so right about now, Mr. Palumi Aribisala is the founder of Cattle Foods. And to my knowledge, he has over 10 years of experience in agribusiness and agricultural value chain management, food processing and food system development. So Mr. Aribi Salasa, what can you say to this question? We know farmers are being exploited. How can you assure our youth of being helped in adding values to their incomes? What can you say to the questions that has been bothering several youths? And the question is, how can they add values to their incomes in agriculture? How can they really go into agriculture and develop a certain value to their own income? How can they generate income from agriculture? We know the main problem we face in agriculture now is proper food storage. And then the fact that insecurity has been on the high side lately. So how can you reassure our youth of that value to their income? Mr. Aribisala, the question is for you, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. When we're talking about value addition, yeah, the truth is that a lot of smallholder, the matter is that a lot of food that we produce today have been produced by smallholder farmers. And these smallholder farmers face a lot of challenges along the value chain. And because of their own capacity of production, they cannot also go into some value addition. Value addition because of the way we have made value addition to look like and the way that we have also presented agriculture. We have made value addition look like something that you must have some big machineries and all of that. Whereas there are some basic value that can be added to farm produce, like some processing to just increase the value pending or along it getting to where it is reached finally. Then another thing is that we have also made agriculture look like you just have to be involved in everything. On a normal day, as a farmer, I don't need to be the one that will process at the same time. I don't need to be the one that is also going to transport. I don't need to be the one that is going to market. I don't need to be the one that is going to do quality control. But in our own climate, that is the way it is. The same farmer is the one looking for tractor. The same person is the one trying to see how it can add value because of the poor pricing system of the produce. So one of the things we just need to do is we need to really disaggregate that agri sector. We need to be able to bring out the different points on the value chain. The farmers are not supposed to be the ones that will be looking for how do they tackle storage. Storage in agriculture is a gold mine on itself. And if you look at our storage infrastructure, it's a very poor one. There's even no electricity to even run some of these storage facilities. So those are the issues. However, be that as it may that we have this problem, there are still some basic values that can be added to farm produce. For example, if you are into tomato, you can convert the tomato to puree. Some of these things may not need so much infrastructure to get it done. And these are things that young people can start looking into. The bakery industry today in Nigeria has been faced with the challenges of high increase, skyrocketing prices of wheat flour. And a lot of them have been looking in the direction of orange sweet potato as puree. These are value additions that require just some basic. And these are areas that young people can go into. In cattle food, for example, we have worked with cassava so much that we have developed more than 25 different products from cassava. And we have commercialized about 6 of these products already from cassava, including cassava-based custard. Cattle food is the first commercialized cassava-based custard in Africa. And so these are areas that people can look into. Young people are very, very innovative. In fact, let me say, young Nigerians are very, very innovative and creative. And as a result of that, they just need to be encouraged. They just need to be encouraged to open up their minds to also see how they can help the system. And don't let us just wait until the government comes to help. The government will not come to help.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. That was really nice. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for that wonderful answer, that wonderful reply. Thank you, sir. So now we would like Professor Odiaka, Professor Akinyemi, and Professor Jimo to please leave us their thoughts. Please share with us your last thoughts, what you want us to go home with, because we, the youths, are ready to change the narrative. Yes, we are ready to take up the challenge of growing what we eat in our homes, even using our waste. Even without having an open space, we are ready to grow what we eat using our waste, our plastic waste, every of the waste we can generate in our homes. And then we are ready to preach that gospel to everybody. Yes, we are ready to do it, leaving no one behind. So we would like you to give us your thoughts. Give us your last thoughts. Give us something you want us to go home with so we can share with others. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, presenters and members who have been around all this while. I really appreciate you guys. And I'm happy that you are the ones sticking and running the thing now. I mean, to me,
thank you, Ma.
It's feeling. I'm happy. Thank you so much. One last word, or two things that I need to add to it. I raised my hand actually when Dr. Adewale, I hope I got the answer, the correct name, answered the question on how can you encourage or move youths, to go into agriculture, into production generally, whether crop or animal or whatever they want to do. The truth is, we have mentors, we have disciples, we have people we look up to. And when they see you do what you do, they also want to emulate you. Yes. So I think it's for us to also do examples, not just saying it, not just speaking it, but also be the producers, also be the processors, also be in the value chain. Let something be done. See that, look, what this person is telling me, he's actually doing it or she's actually doing it. And you can see it in him or see it in her. It will pull them, to also want to do it. Again, I feel when we see agriculture as a business, it will help us more.
Yes.
When medical doctors have their own business, before you see them, you pay some amount of money. Whether they're going to see you or not, you must buy it. So there's that pride, there's that joy, that prestige in whatever they are doing. So for us too, we should be able to see a profession as something great. Don't look down on yourself. Agriculture is not moi moi. It's not just something you get. Yes, our forefathers have been doing it, but they may not have been doing it so well. And when the practitioner spoke, he also spoke about each person being a producer or doing something in the agricultural team. You don't have to sit tight. And we do that as individuals to affect our families, affect our neighbors and the communities around us. It's great. When Dr. Adewale was speaking, he talked about his neighbor asking for pepper. You have a kind of joy in you when you know that you are a giver, that you are able to meet the need of your neighbor. So I want to encourage us. I'm so happy that this discussion has been on. We must of a necessity know that what we have must be cherished. The practitioner told us that you don't need to go into a cauliflower production before you can make it as an agriculturist. No. Even the tete you have at home can be made use of. And that was why I made mention of the fact that our crops the indigenous vegetables and fruits that we have are going extinct because we feel that cucumber is better than garden egg, isn't it? You feel great eating cucumber, eating carrots, rather than taking probably garden eggs and any other food that we have locally. Our indigenous vegetables and fruits must come up again. We should not allow them to go extinct. And in producing them, produce the crops that are of advantage to you in the area where you are than trying to emulate a condition, a temperate condition for your own crop. Yes, I know we have varieties of crops and we have tropical ones that you can grow there, but is that the real thing? Is that what we're actually looking for? Is that what the locals are really looking for? Is that what will help us nutritionally and otherwise? I believe that we have dropped some words for us and we have to take them, chew them, swallow them, and let them grow in us. Thank you very much for this great opportunity, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you for the insight. Thank you, Ma. On the other hand, I would say I also grow what I eat in a sustainable way. And I must say that has actually affected so many people. So many of my friends and my church members now call on me to help them also develop their own gardens. I've been working on that ever since the COVID started. And I must say, even during the COVID time, I planted peppers, vegetables, tomatoes, and every other things. And then I shared it with my community, with my people, with my co-tenants. And that was really nice. In fact, right about now, I make use of my plastic waste in growing what I eat. I grow my tomatoes in bulk. This has been something I love doing, and that
I think, participants, I think Mrs. Shalua is having a network issue. And we are so sorry that we've taken so long time on this session today. And we promise to endeavor to manage the little time for tomorrow. I believe that Prof is about to give his own closing thought in person of Professor Jimo. Sir, can you please give your closing thoughts as discussed by the moderator, sir?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for this very thought-provoking workshop, and very relevant one at that. My last thoughts will be part of what Professor Odiaka had submitted. And that is to the effect that we need now to move away from theorizing, from paying lip services to actual developments in Nigeria. We have to get involved, get engaged. And I'm happy that from what people have been saying here today, a lot of people are already involved at some level or the other. You know, in the good old days, schools had school farms. Civil servants behind their houses had gardens. our problem on food insecurity started when we abandoned all that. I think we need to go back to it. Let everybody behind his house have a small vegetable garden. In my house, before about 2011, I had a flower bed. I planted yellow bush, and I was always, expending my energy managing these flowers. At a stage, it occurred to me that you could actually put some edible things here, that will yield periodic outputs that are useful in the household. So I planted bitter leaf, I planted scent leaf, I planted pawpaw right within the space of about 2 feet by 30 feet. Planted almost 11 different crops, believe you me, including those that are on the floor, those that are in the middle canopy, including orange, coconuts, just on that narrow strip. Today, this year, the oranges have harvested. My family alone could not finish it. I gave to neighbors, gave to family members and friends. This is the kind of thing that I feel that we have to start going into. Right inside our compound, it is possible to grow food, to grow vegetables. In our backyard, some animals like sheep could be kept. I have that. I have a sheep farm right behind my house. I mean, it's a fun. And when it is time for you to now harvest these things, it's as if you are taking it for free, because most of the time what they eat are the supposed waste from the household. When you pluck your vegetables, when you peel your yam, when you have leftover food, you throw it into their pen and they eat and they keep growing and they multiply. So I believe that little bit of efforts like this put together will contribute immensely to food security in Nigeria. And we also have to watch something to help the farmers. This is from, again, personal experience. You produce your crop now, marketing, for you to make a reasonable return from your investment. It's a challenge. Last year, I produced maize. I ran at a loss. This year, right now I have cassava on my farm. The prices of cassava have gone down so low that if I decide to harvest now, the cost of harvesting alone, I may not be able to recoup it from the selling of the cassava. These are challenges that are confronting local farmers and that may discourage youths from going into farming. So if we really want to encourage our youths to engage in farming, we must make farming attractive and profitable. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you very much, Prof, for this wonderful closing thoughts. I would also like to call on Professor Akinyemi. Thank you, sir, for staying to this moment in this workshop. We'd like to have your closing thoughts, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, for that. I want to sincerely thank every one of us for contributing immensely to this workshop. Well, when we talk of wastage, there are some wastes, that you can use, to produce even a mushroom. For instance, in Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, we have been using sawdust to prepare mushroom. And mushroom is something that everybody loves to eat, Even at a restaurant, if you say you want to eat mushroom, they will know that you have money. And aside from that, at the back of your house, you can have something like a snail farming, snail farming, can have rabbitry, can have, poultry, all this can be, it depends on how you take it. There must be a passion for what you are doing. And it doesn't mean that even if you are not an agriculturist, you can create passion for production of food. And this will also assist even your family. At the back of my house, I have a very small place. I have a place where I'm rearing snails. I don't buy snails, I have a place where I'm rearing rabbit, So I will encourage the youth to have passion for, production of this food that we are talking about. It could be crop, it could be animal or whatever. So, but if we contribute, individually towards production of food in the country, definitely we are going to, be sustainable in terms of food production. I want to say again that if you have a place that you know that there is a forest there, you can just do it like an hobby to be practicing beekeeping. Honey production now is something that the demand for honey internationally is high. We cannot meet up. So, and if you look at it, just a liter of honey now is around 3,000 naira, pure honey. So as youth, when you see a place where you can put your beehives, you can just do it as if you are doing a vocation, and that will also assist you to be getting some money apart from the one that you are going to even consume at home. So I want to encourage the youth to also stand up and then let us contribute immensely to production of food in our country. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Professor Akiyemi, for that wonderful idea. You just shared another business idea with us, and it's high time we have to invest into that, just like you mentioned. On behalf of the leadership of SDSN Nigeria, I really want to appreciate all our facilitators, our guests that are present today, and really appreciate that you could even still today's time end this session today with us. And also, I would like to recognize the presence of my able leader, Ambassador Mutiu Ambali. Thank you for joining, sir. Thank you for joining the call. Really appreciate, and also Mr. Femi Yini, really appreciate the support. And to the project team and organizing team who have been working behind the scene, thank you everyone, and the administration team, the publicity team, thank you for the great job you've done so far. And tomorrow's session is going to start by 11 a.m. and we are going to end by 12, all things being equal. We try as much as possible to end by 12. Please don't miss out and kindly endeavor to share the flyer, the webinar link with your colleagues. Definitely, we are still joining with this same link we used to join today. And tomorrow we'll be having a special guest in our midst in the person of that is the Director General of IT and some other experts that are going to be joining as well, speaking more on the future of food and how we can build a resilient food system. Thank you, each and everyone. Thank you. Really appreciate our professors, our mom, person of Professor Diaka. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you, ma, and Professor Jimo and Dr. Laide. We can't mention each and everyone. Yeah, really appreciate you. And all the participants, thank you for staying tuned. We see more of our updates, more of our content. Please feel free to share and rebroadcast. Wish you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. And please, kindly endeavor to use the hashtag NNF2020 and also national, that's Food First NG. NNF 2022, hashtag NNF 2022 to engage in each and every thoughts you are content you are sharing online. Thank you, each and everyone. We love you. I'll celebrate you.
Thank you, Ben. Have a wonderful day.